Rip.
Oh yeah, I got it. Cool.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
That's code, man. Wow.
It is.
I believe they can. I mean,
We'll see what happens, I guess.
is it still working, or is it just my stream? That's because I'm checking the stream. I don't hear anything from the stream. That's weird.
I think it works for me. Let me check.
Let me move over to my computer again. See,
I think we just.
I can't
just
hear
can't
anything
you.
from the stream. Yeah.
I can only hear myself, Deox, and Iron talking, but not you, Nephew.
It's not a podcast without some, audio issues.
Well, we can in the chat, or well, not in chat. I mean, in the Discord.
Oh. Let's just hope we can get back.
Yeah, Neff will have to restart the stream because his mic is not being picked up, apparently, by OBS.
Try that and see if it works.
Hopefully the YouTube end works this time.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like it's working on YouTube.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, good. I had to as I thought, I just had to restart OBS for it to pick up my microphone. All right, we'll wait for people to get back in the chat. Okay, good. Can you guys hear me now? Can the people on
See.
YouTube hear me?
Yeah, they can. They can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I think we could start
Cool.
now. Although since no one heard me, I guess I should give the little heads up. I had internet issues earlier, so there's a possibility the stream will just cut out in the middle of it. But my internet seems completely fine now, so we might not have to worry about that. Anyway, yeah, this is just gonna be a kind of casual Hyrule Conquest stream, all about Hyrule Conquest. We'll probably talk about the cinematics first that broke me, and then we'll probably talk about what we're gonna work on next. And I guess I should introduce you guys. Deox is here again. He's been on like 2 or 3 streams now,
Yeah.
so people
Something
might
like
be
that.
familiar with you. And then we also have Exodarian and Iron Wolf. Exodarian's an awesome programmer. He got the Goron bases working.
Where am I?
And then what?
Installation.
And then Iron Wolf has been handling a lot of the multiplayer stuff like balancing, and he's hosted the tournaments. So I think this is the first time they've been on a stream.
Yeah.
Say hi, guys.
Go easy on them.
Where did the image go, by the way?
Is the image gone?
Did you eat it? What the hell?
He ate it, dude.
I don't know what happened to the image. That's
It's okay,
unfortunate if
that's
the
fine.
image is gone. I really liked the image.
The thumbnail is still there, so.
At least the
Yeah,
thumbnail's there.
that's the most important thing. Yeah,
Right.
that's the most important thing. You know, when people see it.
Yeah.
It's a good image. Oh, there we go.
Oh, the image is there now?
Okay.
It was probably just
Yeah.
taking a few seconds to load.
That's funny.
Alrighty, so I guess
Yeah.
what should we start about, or what should we talk about first?
Yeah, we could talk about the cinematic. Like, yeah, you know, before we started, we went live, and you were talking about how, despite it breaking you, you weren't exactly satisfied with the
Yeah,
final
now
product.
I'm not satisfied. I already hate it and want to redo it. I'm already noticing all these things. I'm like, man, I could have done better. Case in point,
Is there like any specific thing that you
well, just
that stick out the most?
I've made this joke before in the past, and I made the joke on one of the comments I got recently. If you look at any of my cinematics, you can usually tell which parts of it I animated first and which parts of it I animated last, because there's a distinct difference in quality between certain scenes. I usually animate all the scenes with like a lot of choreography and stuff first, so like all the anytime there's like fighting or combat, that's always animated first, and I feel like those scenes look better than the ones I animated last. So and the reason is I'm usually
Yeah.
just exhausted by the time I'm like done with these. Like as time goes on, I get more exhausted, and it just starts to really wear me down. And I think the quality suffers a bit because of it, but you know, I'm kind of on a strict time schedule, so I can't spend 6 months on one animation. That's just too long.
Yeah, I quite like the cinematic though. It's not. I would still say it's not your best, but because it's such an important story, you know, like it's the closing of the entire arc. It's still pretty cool.
Yeah, and
But,
now, when I looked back at it, I think the mission before this is still better, just overall. Even though there's things in that one I want to fix too, there's less problems I have with it. I think the one when Silcaris gets decapitated, that whole cinematic, I think is better overall. I
Yeah.
see less mistakes in it. To answer a
Thing-
question in the chat, there will be a campaign eventually.
Eventually.
Eventually, there will be a campaign. That's what these cinematics are for.
Very
Yeah.
eventually.
I'm considering on starting on making the campaign map in 0 AD, like the kind of overworld map where the sort of turn-based thing will take place. I considered starting on it, but I'm not sure if I'll do that yet.
How would you even implement that right now?
I don't think there is any way to implement it right now. I just wanted to have the map done, so when it comes time to implement it, I won't have to model the map. It'll just be
Yeah.
ready, and then I can just start putting things in.
I would Yeah, what you could do though, before you actually have a chance to implement it in the game, is to have like a more, up to date concept of the world map. Because you said there were some things that minor things and details you would like to change and add. So that would be
Yeah.
maybe cool, just to have as an art piece that people can check out.
I have been slowly updating it. I have the giant skeleton in the Gerudo Desert now, which is
Yeah.
where the Stalfos fortress is, which I thought was kind of appropriate. So I've been adding little details that wouldn't appear on a general map, like little tiny hamlets that only 10 people live in.
To be honest, I feel that we should focus on a mock-up mission, like for mission 1 maybe.
Yeah, like
Just
that's
make it a scenario.
Yeah.
And set up a complete map already, because we know that the missions are probably going to be implemented first before we will ever see any map. So
Someone in the
that's
chat
cool.
mentioned to just focus on updating all the factions. That is probably what I'm gonna do for the next like 8 months to a year. Is port all the main factions over from Medieval 2 into 0 AD. So I'll probably next up is gonna be the Moblins and the Darknuts, which shouldn't be a big secret. And then it'll be the Deku Scrubs and the Lizalfos, and then Labrynna and the Fairies. And I'll probably get all the way to the Wizzrobes and the River Zora. I'll probably do up to there. And then I'll consider doing the Akalans and the Volvagians and some of the new factions that weren't in the Total War version before I move on to other things.
Are you
Then-
doing the
Will last that
Sheikah and the Stalfos? As
Yes,
well
the
before you do
Sheikah and the
that?
Stalfos are after Labrynna and the Fairies, and I guess later we can talk about all the awesome Sheikah ideas you had.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be great.
Yeah,
We have to
Iron
talk
Wolf
about the
had a
Sheikah.
lot of really good ideas for the Sheikah, and I think we'll make them really cool.
but do you think you will last that long? Because I know you get mentally tired sometimes from working on these factions.
I think I will. If I do get drained, I could just take like a 2-week break in between every 2 factions and like work on the map. I guess that might be an interesting idea. Because yeah, the pattern for me seems to be like I start on something and I work on it nonstop for like 2 months, and then I'm fucking burned out, and then I need to do something different. That's why for like the last 2 years I'll get 2 factions into the game, and then I'll get burned out, and then I'll do a cinematic, and then I'll get burned out, and then I'll add 2 factions into the game, and then I'll get burned out. So I've been switching back and forth, and that's kept me kind of not dead for the last year and a
I
half.
think from what I've noticed, I think factions are a lot more refreshing than
I think in the long
cinematics.
term they are too. Like for me
Yeah.
personally, the cinematics, it's like when I'm done for like a day or two, it's like, oh, that was so awesome, and then it's like, oh,
And
well,
then
that's
that's it.
done. But yeah, when I finish a new faction, it's like, oh, now I can play this new faction for like all of time and space.
Also, you just seem you seem generally more like optimistic when you're working on factions. Because I remember when you were working on Ordonia and the Nehru, you were like, "Oh, this is cool. I'm looking forward to this." And then when you're working on the cinematics, you're like, "I've been doing this for 2 months. I just want to keel over and die already."
Yeah, the cinematics
Yeah.
really do break me more than adding factions into the game. Just
Which is understandable, yeah.
and it's because it's a lot more it's just more time consuming,
Right.
like I was saying earlier, the last 2 weeks before the cinematic is done, I basically woke up, and then I brushed my teeth, and then I just work on the cinematic all day, like nonstop. And I'd eat something halfway through the last day before I uploaded, I didn't eat dinner the night before or lunch. Like the day I uploaded the cinematic, I'm like, I'm getting this done today, and I was so starving. And then when I finally got it done, I went to a restaurant and I got a freaking steak. I was so hungry.
Well, to be brutally honest, I've been really disconnected from your cinematics for at least 6 months, where I had no motivation whatsoever to watch your cinematics because they were quite boring to me. But when you released that last part with Hylia, I just rewatched at least 5 missions before that, and I watched the entire mission. I gotta say, I really enjoyed this cinematic.
I'm happy you
yeah.
enjoyed
More so than
it.
any of the others. Probably more so than any of the others so far.
That's awesome. I'm
Well,
glad. Yeah, it seems like the people enjoy the cinematic, despite the fact that I already hate it and want to redo it.
Well, you're a perfectionist, so and overly critical of your own work. So I guess it's not only natural.
Yeah.
I mean, that it's not necessarily a bad thing though. Like you can when you like obviously it's more fun to be completely satisfied with the product, but at the end of the day, it's also a strength that you can always see things that you could improve and do differently the next time around, which is not necessary. So, and I wouldn't say it's a bad thing at all, but I do like this cinematic a lot though. But I again, because it's such an important story moment, and that might skew my view a bit, because I was just really hyped to see the conclusion to the arc.
Yeah, that's why I was so hell-bent on finishing it. I'm like, this is like the end, and then I don't have to worry about this for a long time after. That's
Yeah.
yeah. And honestly, it would have been done like a year earlier, but I switched engines, and that kind of threw a wrench in how things were paced, because I had a set schedule when I was still working in Total War, and I had 3 missions left. And then I changed engines, and it kind of got spread out over the last year and a half. But I'm glad it's done. I personally think the cinematic before the last one was better, because this one I really felt like the fact I was so tired, it really hurt the quality of the cinematic.
Yeah, I think everything prior to this that kind of led up to the battle between the sages and Sulcaris, and also all the cinematics leading up to Demoko's demise. They were all really good. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of build up to them too, which I think helped. Whereas this, like the last cinematic, it's kind of like, okay, all the build up is done, and it's kind of just like a final we gotta kill the head of the snake kind of moment.
Well, I really enjoyed the banter because you have all these scenes, these action scenes that you put together. You post them online, and you see them as a disconnected piece. But then when I saw the full cinematic with all the banter, and just little conversations between characters, that really made the cinematic for me. And when I picture the cinematics combined with the missions, I think it will be really enjoyable. I would want to play that myself, even if I wasn't connected to the game or to the mod, like programming or whatever.
And when we get
I can picture myself like that.
Yeah, when we get enough factions into the game, maybe we should start with the Fallen Sage missions first. Because we have this, well, I kind of want to redo the cinematics, but like when we get all the main factions in, we instead of like starting with the Ancient Age missions, maybe we should just focus on getting the Fallen Sage campaign in 0 AD first, and then go from there.
I wouldn't be opposed to that. Yeah, I think that's a good idea, especially considering a lot of the Fallen Sage stuff is more updated. Like the cinematics are more up to date.
It's also the most, in my humble opinion, it's the most fleshed out of all the different. Not even just like the story, like the actual concepts for the missions themselves. Like, I couldn't really do it well in the Total War, but I can pull this off in 0 AD. Like the first mission when you're trying to dig up the hives that Agatha laid throughout the Hylian city so that they start spawning all the larvae, because she basically snuck all the nests into the city. Like, that could be done a lot better in like the 0 AD format than Medieval 2. Just set
just pick a mock-up mission.
So yeah, that might be the first mission that we get in 0 AD, is the one when you're trying to dig up the hives that Agatha buried around the city.
Yeah. I think it would be a good place to start. And yeah, the cinematics, they're all there. So I think it would be easy to,
I want to redo those older ones so bad that none of them have motion blur. And there's parts, like, if you look carefully, like, because there's a lot of secondary animation, like, things like hair dangling and the earrings on characters flopping around and clothing flopping around. Like, there's parts in some of the older cinematics where none of that is happening, where, like, Zelda's earrings are completely still, and I just see that, and I just want to facepalm, like, how did I miss that?
Yeah.
So I really
So
want to,
that-
like, go back and add in things like that, like, have her earrings, like, dangling around and then re-render it, but...
Yeah.
I'm gonna get all the factions and stuff in first before I go back to cinematics. So
Which faction is first now? Is it the
Moblins,
Darknut or the Moblins?
Moblins,
Alright.
and then Darknuts.
be
Moblins
good.
are gonna be awesome.
Yeah, the moblins are gonna be really fun. I think.
I'm looking forward to them.
They got mobile bases, which is so cool.
I'm actually looking forward to the Moblins a lot more than the Darknuts. I'm gonna be honest.
You're lying, Iron. You're lying. You're just
I'm
waiting
not.
for a balance. You're waiting for a balanced Madonna. That's all.
Oh yeah, we need to nerf Ordonia. We should probably do that first, actually.
For anyone that doesn't know, Ordana is very strong right now.
You're the only one that
They're-
believes that.
Are you kidding me?
To answer some of the questions in the chat, basically all the Moblin buildings are like really crappy, like little tents. So what they do is they take apart the tents and they pack them up, and then they just like walk around with all the parts and then they rebuild them. So
For some reason-
Moblin buildings are actually incredibly flimsy and weak. So they're not a defensive faction at all. They don't have like walls or really good towers and stuff. They're meant to kind of move like if say you're playing as the Moblins and someone has a pretty big army and they're coming in to attack your base, it probably would be better, instead of holding your ground, to just pack up your base and run away and set it up in a different spot. Unless you also have like a really big army, but the Moblins are meant to be incredibly aggressive and not a turtle faction at all. The Darknuts, on the other hand, are the exact opposite. The Darknuts, they're kind of like, their bases kind of function like the Gorons, where they have one really large building that you just fortify as heavily as possible, and you stay on the defensive as long as possible, and you slowly build up like this really high quality army, and then you just slowly push across the map with your really, beefy army. So there's like a dichotomy with these two factions, which I think is thematically why I've kind of linked them together in a single kind of release, because they're so opposite of each other.
Yeah, I mean, even the Darknuts are like, considering they're they have incredibly strong units, but despite that, they're obviously really slow and high in the defense.
Yeah,
it's a cool contrast to the Moblins overall.
I feel like the Darknuts are probably what's going to start bringing people back into the mod. Because a lot of people, also, as we've joked about, I think Labrynna is gonna bring a lot of people, and everyone seems to love Labrynna. It blows my mind.
Labrynna and the Darknuts, I feel like, are gonna bring the biggest crowds, because I've noticed those are the most popular.
Yeah, everyone
someone in
seems to
chat-
love the Darknuts.
Someone in chat is asking about the Tweely. I think they're quite late in the development cycle.
The Tweely they're. Let me find a way to articulate this. The Tweely
10
will
years.
kind of be in the main game, but they're also kind of relegated to, I guess I'll just call it an expansion pack for now. There's a Tweely themed sort of. Okay, let me
I guess.
There's the main Hyrule conquest, which takes place in Hyrule. All the factions are based in Hyrule. And then when that's done, I'm going to have what I'm going to call expansion packs. The first one's going to be the Great Sea, which adds a bunch of Navy-based factions into the game. It's themed a lot around like Wind Waker, so we'll have factions like the Reto and things like that. And then the second one is going to probably be the Tweely themed expansion pack. So all these factions that come from the realm of Twilight. And then the third one is Termina. So the Termina one will be last. So I'm sorry. I know you love Icona. But Icona's actually
okay.
actually Icona does appear in the main game, so they will be done before the expansion pack. They just won't be playable.
It's okay. I can
It'll
wait
be
40
around
years.
DLC. DLC.
DLC.
It'll be teasing me for 40 years.
It's a DLC for just Iron, you know. You can just wiggle it in front of it.
Yay!
To answer the question about the Reto in the chat, the design is actually more close to the Breath of the Wild design because despite the fact that I love the Reto, I've always hated the way they looked in Wind Waker. I keep wanting to say Wind Waker because what? Because the what?
I
What'd
said
you say?
same. Like I have that habit all the time. I say Wind Waker, and people are like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Oh fuck."
Yeah, because we have a guy in the Discord. He's one of my friends, and his name on the Discord is Wind Wanker. So every time I talk about the game Wind Waker, I always want to call it his name. But yeah, the Reto visually will look more as they do in Breath of the Wild, but a lot of their actual faction is based on the stuff from Wind Waker, because I actually like them more in Wind Waker, despite the fact that I prefer the design from Breath of the Wild, if that makes any sense at all.
Makes sense.
The design is really good. So it feels more, I don't know, rooted in Hyrule than the Wind Waker does. The Wind Waker design is kind of like it was fine for the time, but it kind of just looks like they strapped the beak, on some feather-colored humanoids.
Yeah.
It's like they took a birthday hat and put it on their face.
Exactly. So
It's
and,
funny.
so
It's
I
funny
think,
though, because despite the fact I don't like the way the Reto look in that game, and I do like the way the Reto look in Breath of the Wild, I actually like the depiction of them more in Wind Waker than I do in Breath of the Wild. Like their personality, I like more. It's kind of funny.
yeah.
But as we've joked about and discussed in the past, Breath of the Wild doesn't have a lot of personality in general, so it's kind of just a flaw with that game. Whereas Wind Waker, despite the fact that the game I don't think is that good, it actually has a lot of personality to it.
But
Yeah.
that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a conversation for another day, I guess, yeah. I'm just trying to explain my reasoning for the Reto in Hyrule Conquests is all.
There are a lot
Anyway.
good factions coming up, but you'll have to wait. You have to be in the long game, I guess.
Honestly, I think the Rito's probably gonna be one of my main factions when I participate in tournaments. I'm probably gonna main the Reto and the Inauki.
Don't say tournaments now if Shadarian's gonna poke at me.
What? Sorry, I missed that part. Say it
Nothing,
again.
nothing.
Say it again, come on. Dev. What's going on?
I was saying I'm curious as to what everyone in the chat's favorite faction is. That's what I said.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm
Oh.
curious to see what the favorite factions are too. I'm gonna guess that Darknuts and Labrynna are gonna win.
Yeah.
Maybe I should
I-
put like a little
I-
voting thing up for that.
Yeah, Labrynna is really popular. And I think it's a lot. I think despite they being largely the product of your own imagination, considering that the official game doesn't exactly give you a lot to work with. But I think a lot of people just like them because of the themes, and and obviously they have guns. And people love guns.
Yeah, I'm tempted to blame it entirely on the guns, because I've always been confused as to why so many people like Labrynna in my game, because a common criticism I get is that I change so many things from like Nintendo's canon. Like I change things too much, but Labrynna is almost nothing like their canon counterpart. Like other than the Black Tower and the fact that Varen is kind of manipulating Ambi, they basically are completely their own thing in Nephi canon. They have freaking guns, for example. So
Yeah,
I find it strange that this faction that I've warped so much from more than any other faction, I've warped them from their canon counterpart is the most popular. I find it kind of funny because, again, one of the most common criticisms I get is that I'm not true to canon. So I find that really funny.
All right. Also,
go ahead.
Before we start talking about the Sheikah and the funny ideas you guys had for the Sheikah, I'd just like to point out there's some good news and some bad news from the programming department.
Oh no, did you break 0 AD?
The progress for the AI is going quite well. So well, in fact, that I'm basically overhauling everything to the point where I'm not even sure if I'll be able to put in anything regarding new mechanics, because I know you want your knockback and your stealth mechanic.
Yes.
I'm also not sure if it's going to happen.
More so knockback, because knockback would be really good for the Darknuts. Oh, actually, that reminds me, but I'll let you finish before I go on. What's the bad news?
Well, that's the bad news, right? Like, because I'm working so much on the AI.
Oh, okay.
I'm not spending anything else, anything of my time.
I'll focus on the AI then. That's fine.
So I might.
The AI is your baby.
Maybe it is. It might just be, but I might just put some time aside for some of the other mechanics. And of course, this huge thing we've been talking about, some of the other developers or modders, whatever you want to call them, that they've been working on a battalion system.
Oh yes.
We've been talking with you about implementing a version of that, or seeing how we could implement that into Conquest.
Yeah, I would not be opposed to focusing on that when you're done with the AI, because I think that'll actually bring back a lot of the Total War players too.
Yeah, I definitely think I think it's a very good compromise,
and it'll up the scale of the battles too.
It's basically going back to or going to some kind of battle familiar style of gameplay. And I've been talking to you about polish a lot as well when it comes to creating units, sound effects, and also the UI aspect, because the UI aspect currently is very bare minimum.
I'm gonna do the UI in the next release with the Moblins and Darknuts. I'm gonna create at least for like the menus and stuff, because I've said it before. What I want in the actual game is for each faction to have their own UI. Which, as far as I can tell, there's no real ability to do that in 0 AD. You can only have like one consistent UI across the board. So I'm just gonna do like a generic one for now, and then down the road, we could maybe do a UI for each faction. But either way,
in the lobby.
Yeah, in the lobby, I'm gonna do that for the next version. I think it's time to have our own UI.
But also some image or something when you select a faction, that it shows you an image of kind of what you did with Total War, really. When you
with the little icon?
No, not just the icon, but also an image of some of the heroes, or some kind of cool picture from Hyrule, like the Kingdom of Hyrule. And
yeah, that would be an awesome idea. Yeah, well, like when you select the faction, like over on the side, it shows yeah, like in Total War, where it shows like a kind of a... Well, if in 0 AD right now, if you click on the little... it's like a little eye in a circle, which I think stands for information. If you click on that, it shows a bunch of details about the faction you're selecting. Should we maybe put it in that menu, or do you want it to be like
I think
total...
it should be on the... it should be on the... I think it should be on the select, because it looks way more polished.
I'm fine with that. I personally don't have any preference, so... someone's asking about Star Fox.
Yeah, like it doesn't need to be as intricate as it was in Total War, but it would at least look a bit more presentable and polished if you had like when you can actually get a bit of an overview. Just like small sentences here and there, what their playstyle is, what their deal is, I think would be really cool.
Yeah, I'm just going to briefly try and answer some of the questions in the chat before we go on. Someone asked about Star Fox Event Horizon. I'm just going to try and lay it out here as best... Yeah. The other day,
Yeah.
I actually did work on more animated portraits for my Star Fox game on the little Star Fox website I have. I posted them, but for the people that are looking for the Star Fox game, it really is going to be a long time probably before I really get anything considerable done for that, because there's just not enough people interested in it right now compared to Hyrule Conquest. I can't justify sinking the amount of time I need to get a lot done in it at the same pace I'm doing for Hyrule Conquest. So I apologize for the 10 people that are interested in the Star Fox game. It's gonna be a long time. The focus is mostly on the Zelda game right now. And there was another question that someone asked, but I'm not seeing it. Oh, will there be other arcs? Yes, there's a lot more. There's a lot more. There's
a ton of story there.
There is a distinct possibility that I will not finish all of these story arcs I have outlined within my lifetime, because there's a lot. Like the next one, I'm pretty sure I'll get the next one done in my lifetime. It's the Labrynna one, which I personally think is going to be the best one out of all of them, because it's the most character driven, I think. And as you pointed out, although it might be the most hated one, because as you pointed out, it has the highest named character death count in any of the story arcs.
Oh, yeah,
so many named characters die and it wasn't even intentional. Like,
it's okay. People like Game of Thrones. They'll be fine with named characters.
I did not purposely set out to kill so many named characters in the next story arc. Just when Deox was looking through them, he's like, wow, like a lot of named characters die in the next story arc. And I'm like, oh yeah, wow. I didn't mean that. So many named characters from Canon get killed in the next part. It's kind of sad.
Good.
Yeah, I agree with you. Good.
Good.
I don't know if I'm gonna spoil. I know you guys are kind of aware of some of the characters that get off. I don't know if I want to spoil it, but
yeah, don't spoil it. Some people in here
keep it a surprise.
Yeah, I'll keep it a surprise. I guess heads up. The next story arc, a lot of characters die.
TLDR.
TLDR, exactly. And then after the Labrynna arc is it's kind of like this arc where it's kind of a spoiler, I guess, but Link and Zelda, and then parallel to them, Rallis and Saria are trying to return from Labrynna to Hyrule, and they kind of get split into two different directions. Link and Zelda end up basically getting involved in this war between the Lizalfos and the Deku Scrubs.
Yeah.
Good.
On their way back, and that leads to connections with Ganondorf. And then Rallis and Saria are making their way north back to Lanayru province. The bunch of River Zora stuff happens.
I just asked Neff that when you do the Lizalfos and the Deku Scrub war, that you have a scene where they're just fighting in the jungle and it's playing the helicopter music from Forrest Gump. When they're in Vietnam.
No. Although there will be a lot of napalm.
That's spicy. Spicy lore stuff.
It's the best weapon to use against the scrubs. We'll see Skull Kid in that part too. Fine. Like everyone keeps asking, when's Skull Kid coming up? I'm like, he's in the next part of the story, and they're like, how? I'm like, they go through the forest. He's there.
Wait and see, I guess. I mean, there's also the entire. Speaking of arcs, there's also the entire ancient Hyrule, which is it's quite different. It's quite different from what it used to be. The main skeleton is still there narratively, but there's so much detail now that wasn't there.
Yeah, because when I started doing the missions and the cinematics way back in the Boomer days, I didn't know what was really possible. So the whole ancient age with King Gustav was kind of just a few short little missions. That's been fleshed out a lot. So whenever I have time to go back to that, that's gonna be a lot more detailed than it was.
I think Akala will be one of the most aesthetically pleasing factions. Honestly.
Yeah, I think Akala is gonna be awesome. the whole like golden like Greco-Roman sort of look, and you know they have like the wolf theme going on because of Gustav. It'll be pretty cool.
The Guardians need some love as well.
What'll get love as well?
The Guardians.
Oh yeah, right? The Guardians. I like what I've done with the Guardians, but I've already shown some people what I'm doing with them, and they've kind of some people aren't happy with the direction I'm going with the Guardians, but
they're freaking awesome. If you don't like the redesigns, guys, you're wrong. I'm telling you right now, you're wrong.
Not everyone is. I mean, it's because they're not like they are in canon, and I can understand people having that sort of a complaint because I know some people really love actual Nintendo canon and they want to see the things they like from Nintendo canon represented in the fan game, but I'm more interested in improving on things that I don't find perfect, I guess. And I'm not trying to imply that my ideas are better or more perfect. It's my mod, so I kind of steer things in a direction that I prefer. And the Guardians are not machines in my version of Hyrule Conquest. They're not machines at all. They're more like golems.
You posted this DeviantArt picture, I remember, of this huge giant guy, like Ono something.
Oh yeah, Ono Mausen.
Yeah, that one. I really like that design.
Yeah,
it reminds me
really
a little bit of Thaddeus from the people that play World of Warcraft.
I don't know. I think I guess I just have a thing for giant like artificial bearded gods with celestial shit going on.
Yeah, he's I don't think it's very subtle at all that the guardian god guy is kind of he's clearly the whole Atlas theme. He's the golden statue that's upholding the world. It's not very subtle at all. he's an artificial god that they built to replace the old gods, and things go wrong when you do that. It's generally not a good idea to build a mechanical deity to run your world.
No, it's generally not a good idea.
Not for human psychology anyway. Maybe if you're like an ant hive, but which I guess the Guardians kind of are. They're like those hyper organized kind of. I don't know if I'd describe them as like an ant hive, but someone pointed out the Dwemer, the Dwemer. Yes, it's exactly like the Dwemer from Morrowind. The freaking giant Dagath and his giant Voltron golem.
Well, yeah, following up a bit on what you said, Iron, is that the cool thing with Akala is that you actually get to explore something that I know a lot of Canon Zelda fans have wanted to see for a while, which is the Hylian civilization in their heyday, when everything is good. Which is we see glimpses of it. We kind of we used to see glimpses of it in Canon, but it's mostly either artwork or ruins in Breath of the Wild's case, and some in Twilight Princess as well. So I think it'll be really cool to actually, not only play as them, but actually get to see like a more fully realized version of it, that particular theme, I guess. Which I think
Kala is basically like peak Hylians. That's when they were at the height of. I don't want to use the word power because the Kingdom of Hyrule has a lot of power, despite the fact that their civilization has decayed since the time of Akala.
I guess the cultural height.
Yes,
I would say like
the yes, that's how I'd put it. Culturally, that's at the peak of their power. It's when their buildings were the most grandest. Their population was at its most educated, probably. The quality of life was at its best, despite the fact that they didn't hold as much, I guess, physical power over the world as the modern Hylians do. Like, their territory didn't stretch all across the Hyrule like it does later on. But yeah, Akala is more glorious, I guess you could say. Their buildings are all like new and pristine, even though they have they look ancient by modern standards because they're not like freaking skyscrapers and technological buildings. They're still like Greco-Roman kind of inspired, but like they're not ruins that are falling apart.
So
I'm looking forward to the houses as well. I think that'll be cool.
Yeah, that'll be pretty great, especially
Yeah,
the Civil War.
Yeah, dude.
So what about the Volvagians or Volvagians, however you pronounce it?
Volvagians. Yeah, Tedster's gonna kill me if I don't put them in before I start going back to cinematics.
Because how are you going to represent them in the game? Because I find them quite interesting as well.
The Volvagians, in terms of their, do you want me to go into detail of their gameplay or just like their aesthetics?
A bit of both. A bit of both. We can talk about the Sheikah as well in a bit. But
oh, the Sheikah are gonna be great. But the Volvagians, I'll start with like I guess the way they look and stuff. There are these giant dragon creatures that basically enslave other creatures to do their work for them. So visually, they'll have a lot of like dragon creatures. They're very fire based, and their lower level units are a bunch of like enslaved Gorons and like chains and stuff. So all their workers are a bunch of Goron slaves that are like decrepit and unhealthy and stuff. In terms of gameplay, there's a type of faction in the game. I can't remember what I called it, but basically they start out incredibly weak and swarmy, and then about halfway through the game, the dynamic like shifts to where they're the exact opposite, where they have really beefy and powerful units. The Deku Scrubs are also going to be like this. Like they start out with a bunch of weak, swarmy, cheap, crappy units, and then as they tech up, it inverts where they have like a few extremely powerful units. The Volvagians will kind of be like that. They start out with a bunch of like crappy Goron slaves, and then when they bring their dragons out, the dynamic shifts around. Labrynna is also like that too. Labrynna starts out with like a bunch. Oddly enough, Labrynna has a bunch of slaves too. They have the Toke as their slave force. They start out with like a bunch of weak, crappy like the underclass that they've enslaved, and then when they get the guns out, they're incredibly powerful, and the dynamic shifts around.
Did you already put together a list for the Volvagians? Because if I go to the wiki, there's barely anything there.
I believe I do have their unit roster. Let me see if I can find it. It might be incomplete, but
hearing that there's going to be more swarm factions in the game is going to give me a heart attack.
There's not too many actually. I have most of the Volvagian roster done. I'm still missing like 4 or 5 units. Although I feel like I did do them, but maybe I didn't.
While I did enjoy Saria Conquest, Volvagian Conquest would not be fun.
Well, the Volvagians aren't a pure swarm faction, so
that's good.
They're only.
You have to keep it.
Oh, go on. What were you saying?
We have to keep it Ordonia Conquest for Irewolf's mental state.
I'm trying to think of what other swarm factions there are. There actually aren't too many. There's the Goma, obviously. They're like the main one. When stealth and camouflage and stuff is added into the engine, the Kokiri I actually wouldn't consider a swarm faction.
Yeah.
They are right now, but they won't be in the end, I think. Ordonia is kind of a swarm faction. The way I want Ordonia to feel, because to me a swarm faction is, say you're fighting against a swarm faction. The difference between a swarm faction and Ordonia is you're minding your own business and suddenly there's like 500 units that just pour into your base. Ordonia is supposed to be like a steady stream of like smaller amounts of units, but it's like a constant barrage of units like coming at you, like without pause.
The way I see it is there's like aggressive swarm factions and then more passive swarm factions. Like, for example, the Goma is a good example of an aggressive swarm faction. While Ordonia, from a lot of the gameplay I've seen of Ordonia, a lot of it is just their economy snowballing, and then they just throw like 500 horses at you, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, Ordonia needs to be tweaked. Ordonia needs to be tweaked.
Like
they're too powerful.
I was actually playing a match about a week and a half ago against a guy, and I had so many horsemen that my game crashed.
To be fair, no, your computer is kind of trash.
Okay, now Oh my gosh! But still, it was funny.
Yeah, I need to add the low poly versions of Ordana and Laneru into the low poly patch. That should help with those two factions. I still haven't added them to the low poly thing yet.
I still don't know
Yeah.
how to feel about Lanaru yet.
I kind of
I
like
mean-
Laneru. Actually, right now, I think the Gorons, like of the factions that are in the game right now, I think the Gorons are my favorite since their bases are working properly now. I love the Battle for Middle Earth bases a lot. I like having like that one large structure with like all the parts being added onto it. I like that feeling a lot. So even though the Gorons are like nowhere near my favorite like culture or species in the Zelda series, like they're my favorite faction to play as right now.
They're
Which is
pretty
why I
cool.
actually think the Darknuts, even though again I'm not a huge fan of the Darknuts, I think I'll probably like playing as them a lot when they're done in multiplayer anyway.
The Darkness kind of sound like they'll be the biggest noob stompers. Like, due to how they, their gameplay is, they kind of take some effort to kind of counter. I guess they wouldn't be that. They are. That doesn't necessarily mean they're overpowered. It's just that the player kind of just has to play in a certain way to render them kind of weak. Which I just get the impression. I just feel that they'll be the biggest noob stompers in the game.
Yeah,
I think the Darknuts are actually going to be the biggest noob faction in the game because it's going to reward turtling.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, a problem that a Darknut player will have to figure out to solve is a map control, because another player that manages to take control of all the resources on the map will, no matter how much a Darknut turtles, they'll still be able to outlast them because they'll just have so many resources. So a Darknut player still won't be able to just bunker in a corner completely and ignore the entire map and hope to... I mean, obviously we'll have to, do a bunch of balancing stuff, and they'll probably be either overpowered or underpowered when we first release them, but the end
Speaking of map control,
Oh, go on.
didn't we discuss like a mini boss for the next version on the map?
I'm not
Oh, dude.
sure. I mean, I'd be happy to add more bosses and stuff to future maps, but I don't remember us discussing one in particular. Do
Speaking
you
of
remember what it
bosses,
was?
Dude, the scorpions on Lanayru, dude. Oh my gosh.
What?
Iron Wolf doesn't like the boss on the Lanayru map.
I like
Why
it when
not?
I kill it, but when I'm just trying to chill and then I notice like all these scorpions in my base, I'm like, wait, what the hell? Where did these come from?
They're so easy to kill. You just,
They are.
Are you bad at? Are you implying that you're bad at the game?
Get good.
Guys,
No
doesn't this seem
comment.
legit? Our the guy in charge of the balancing and shit is bad at the game.
Oh my god.
The thing about the scorpions,
Aaron.
though, is it's a bunch of free food.
Yeah, it's good.
Moldarok is the ultimate troll.
But Moldrak doesn't even attack you. He just waddles around the beach until you encounter him, and then he becomes a little bit scary.
Do you?
Yeah, no. Moldark is cool, but the scorpion waves.
Moldarok's like
Nah,
the
they're-
one
they're
creature
fine.
from Skyward
They're good.
Sword I actually like the design for.
He is
Me-
so
me-
salty. You hear this guy? He's so salty about these scorpions.
Memeing aside, it's a good mechanic.
I was talking to Neff about this, that I'll probably put in when it comes to maps. Of course, this is just the first map just to start it out, so it's very bare bones. But there'll probably be some setting where you can set the map script to aggressive or easier or whatever you want.
Yeah, I'll answer that question about the Oka faction in just a second, but what was I gonna say really quick? Yeah, because you brought up the options. Yeah, down the road I'd like it, so yeah, you could like click an option that disables aggressive wildlife. So like if you click it, the scorpions and Moldarok will just sit in their little corner and they won't go out and attack the other players. Same thing with the little minor factions. I wouldn't mind an option that disables minor faction. So if you ticket Lon Lon Ranch, for example, won't do anything. But someone asked about the Oka faction. The Oka faction, actually, I'd consider them kind of a turtling faction too. They play a little more defensively, but one thing I'd really like for them is instead of their units coming out of, like, say you have a barracks or whatever, and you train a bunch of Oka units. When they're done training, I don't want it so that they like pop out right there at the building and then walk to the rally point. I'd like it so wherever the rally point is, they like fall from the sky and land where the rally point is. That might be a really cool mechanic. And then they also have all their different statues that their units can switch between. So they're kind of I almost want to say they're kind of more of a flexible faction where their units can morph and change depending on the situation. Like they have certain statues that are good for certain things. So say they're attacking a base and they wipe out an enemy army defending a base and they need to do damage to the buildings, they can abandon the statues that their units are commanding and switch them for like siege statues instead of building like new siege units. So the Oka are still kind of in the planning stage, I guess, but I have a general idea of how I want them to play. I'm trying to think of an example from another RTS that's kind of like them, but I'm having trouble thinking of another example. Actually, I can't think of an example, but I bet no one knows this example. If anyone has played Fleet Ops, the Oka will kind of be like the Romulans. And no one's gonna know. No one's gonna have played them.
I played Fleet Ops solely because I tried to get Sigma to work.
Poor Sigma.
The Uka is gonna be like the bootleg Sigma, simulator in Hyrule Conquest. That's what you should do with it. You just implement that. Just make it into your Sigma faction, token Sigma faction in Hyrule Conquest.
Dude, don't you love aliens and sci-fi and fantasy now?
It depends.
Sigma's a faction.
It depends. It depends on how it's done and the context and what, like. I don't know if I want to go on that rant right now, so I might not go on that rant right now.
Yeah, probably not.
Maybe we should talk about the Sheikah instead.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Iron Wolf had a really good idea for the Sheikah, and his idea was basically just port over their stuff from Total War.
Heck yeah, dude.
Which, for whatever reason, I didn't even consider doing. The Sheikah will basically have like 3 different stances that they can shift between, and their units will change depending on what stance that they're in. So it's gonna be pretty awesome. So they'll have the 2 stances from the Total War version of the game. They'll have the Shadow stance and the Death stance, and in the Shadow stance they'll have all their units basically become completely stealthed. So their units will be invisible and they can sneak around the map and stuff. But their units are really weak in that stance. And I think we also discussed that their stuff will be more expensive when they're in the Shadow stance. So when you're in the Shadow stance, it's meant for like scouting and assassinating and sabotaging and messing with your enemy, but not really directly attacking them. And then they have the Death stance, which is they kind of become like more of a normal faction where all their units become combat based. They pull out the katanas instead of the knives, and they put on armor and stuff. And they won't have any workers when they're in Death stance. Their workers will turn into combat units. So Death stance is like when you commit to the Death stance, it's like, okay, I'm gonna attack the enemy now and just send my army in with them. And then they will also have what?
That's the good point. That's the point where all your, rice paddy workers, peasants, pull out their sword and, jump into the enemy and just slaughter them. I just have this amazing picture in my head where it will look really funny when you have a bunch of these scrubs running around that just pull out this...
pull out a katana!
Freaking katana. Yeah.
But, yeah, each stance will be based on one of the 3 different aesthetics for the Sheikah that has shown up throughout the series. So yeah, and the third stance is kind of we haven't named it yet, but it's kind of like an economic stance where the Sheikah are more like farmers. They basically like turn into a workforce, And that's the stance they actually start out in when you start a game. But so for the Shadow stance, their aesthetics will be based more on like the Sheik and Impa from Ocarina of Time, where they're kind of more like actual, stealthy ninjas. And then the Death stance, the Sheikah will look more like the Shogun kind of design from Hyrule Warriors that Impa had, where they're more armored. And then the economic stance that hasn't been named yet, the Sheikah will look like their designs from Breath of the Wild, where they're like a bunch of peasants. And I thought that was a pretty good way to unite the three aesthetics.
Yay for rice patties.
Because I'm not gonna go on a huge rant, but as you know, I really hate what they've done to the Sheikah in Zelda canon. I really don't like the fact that they basically were like a little cabal of assassins and ninjas, and now they're like a like a technocracy with like iPads and like freaking techno mages and stuff. It's like, how the hell did you go from that to that?
Dude, the stances, they changed stances, obviously.
Well, yeah, that's why your idea was so great. I'm like, oh, that's how I can actually kind of unite the three aesthetics in a way. They basically
I don't know about.
They change their culture
doing that.
depending on the climate, and I don't mean like the weather, like the political climate of Hyrule. They changed like the entire way their culture is presented to the world depending on what they need to do. Like in a time of like absolute war and chaos, they all become warriors, and when things are calm and they're in control, they turn into assassins so that they can manipulate and control things. And then when times are hard and they're beaten back, they become a bunch of peasant farmers that no one suspects. And I thought that was a nice way to kind of unite the different aesthetics.
Yeah, I don't know about
and tie it into gameplay too.
Yeah, like it has to be said though. I don't know about UNF, but when I was living in Japan, and I would always see the rice paddy people pull out laser swords. It's pretty common. That's how they do it.
I'm not gonna go on a rant about all the technology in Breath of the Wild. Stop trying to goad me into a rant. We'll do another podcast on that if you want.
But I think the stance idea is really cool, and then you. In this specific context, though, I think it really makes sense because at the end of the day, even like you said, the more cabal esque Sheikah still have vague inspirations from ninjas, and as we know, in ninjas and other assassins were mainly peasants.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say the funny thing about ninjas is they were just a bunch of peasants that rised against the shogun. So there's kind of an irony of me saying like I'm upset that they went from a bunch of ninjas to freaking techno peasants, but you know what I mean though. Like
I know what you mean.
There was a very distinct aesthetic and culture that the Sheikah kind of had, and then they completely changed it for no apparent reason, and it kind of bothered me. And they do that with a lot of things in the Zelda series. It's not just the Sheikah. I just think the Sheikah are probably like the most overt example of completely missing the point with like future versions of them. It's the same thing with Hyrule Warriors when they freaking gave Impa like a giant buster sword and a suit of armor. It's like that is not like the character that's been established at all. They only did that because they thought it looked cool. I know rule of cool is a thing, but I do not really subscribe to the rule of cool. I think it's a really I think it can really backfire on you.
What about the thumbnail then?
The thumbnail is just a joke.
Okay.
I mean, if Hyrule Warriors is just a joke, then it's a really funny one.
You just called it.
I will say.
You should just call the rice. No, you should just call the rice stance. I don't know, weeb stance.
Weeb stance. Call it the weeb stance. Call it the pious stance. Or wifey stance.
No, actually, a name would be cool. You have shadow stance, death stance, and then you have something really like daylight stance. Something really silly. It's like make the player feel guilty for padding inside the peasant playstyle.
I liked rice stance a lot. Wasn't rice stance like the working name we had?
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
the right stance or passive stance. They're
Passive,
both
I
kind of.
think passive was the best one.
Passive stand. I'll think of something.
think
For
that's what
now,
we
I
came
just
up
kind of
with, yeah.
call it like economic whatever
Yeah,
for the
just
time being.
the other stance, right?
But I think
Right stance.
I think the Sheikah are actually going to be a really really fun faction when we get to them. I might even play as
They're the
them.
faction I'm looking forward to the most within the next 40 years.
Poor Icona.
Well,
Icana's going to
definitely-
be awesome too.
Iron was definitely thinking of me. It's like, how can I make so many more mechanics for Exodarian to implement? It's like, stand system. There you go.
I think
I'm only in this to spite you.
the stance system can work in 0AD as it is. The only thing that we would need to do is make it so that when a unit transforms, like right now when a unit transforms, it's done through promotions. I would recommend at some point we separate like a unit changing from a technology into something separate from promotions, or we make it so that a unit can, when it is promoted, it can change between an option of different units instead of just one. Because right now a unit can only transform into one unit. It can't like determine between multiple different units to transform into. Unless you do upgrades, but I want the stance thing to be automatic, not something you have to like click on every single unit. Like when you click on the civil center and you're like, okay, I'm going in death stance now. When it's done, all of your units should automatically whip out the katanas. You shouldn't have to click on a unit and then click on an upgrade thing to give them, their katanas or whatever.
Yeah.
We'll worry about that when we get to the Sheikah though, because they're still probably like 6 to 8 months away from now.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do you still have that list of the base building for all the factions?
Yes, I do have that list. It's actually in the archive on the Discord, but
Okay.
it's not. Do you want me to just post? I'll just post it on the.
Yeah, just copy paste it because I wanted to see some of them.
All right, I'll put it in the Discord. You guys talk while I go find it.
What is the Darknuts, like, what's their base building going to be again? I forgot.
It's like the Gorons. I call it a plot-based building. Because basically you have a central structure and it spawns a bunch of little plots around it, and you click on the plots and then build like add-ons or they're not necessarily always add-ons, but you build buildings based on the little plots around the central structure. And if the central structure is destroyed, everything around it kind of dies.
Yeah, you just kind of expand the citadel and turtle, like a douchebag.
It's like an extreme version of the modular bases that the Kokiri and Laneru have. It's like a more extreme version of that. But anyway, let me find the build style thing.
I can guarantee though, Iron, you're not gonna have fun playing against the Darknuts at all. They don't sound like they sound like if you like really strong slow factions, I think you're gonna have a field day with them. But I don't think they're the kind of faction you're gonna have any fun playing against, right? Because just due to how they work. Which is fine. At the end of the day, it's kind of difficult to make every faction fun to play and play against.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of fun like messing around with them, but it's gonna come down to, honestly, how fast can they lose to the Goma.
Just kite.
That's what it's gonna come down to for me personally, to see
Goma
how
are
I go.
No, the Goma are not that overpowered anymore.
We still need to fix their eggs.
Okay, you're right. Exodarian is right. They are not Ordana.
Well, it was hard to miss. You complained about them so many times.
Who?
It was giving me an aneurysm. You did.
Well, he
Yes.
did, but not anymore.
I haven't really
Not
complained.
anymore.
I'm not complaining about them. I'm just saying they're obviously still the strongest aggressive faction. And if the Darknuts are supposed to be a defensive faction, I want to see like how they can counter that. Like that's going to be a big thing for me, is because the problem with the Gorons before, they're not so much like this anymore. But the problem with them before was that they were a strong defensive faction, but they didn't get to live long enough to be defensive.
Yeah. The Darknuts they'll have a bunch of like, well, not a bunch, but they'll have civilian units that they can pump out like early on and do stuff with. It's not like they won't have things they can do in the early game. It's just they're more biased towards late game. And as long as they work, that's what matters. But like, yeah, not everyone's gonna love playing as that kind of, like, even me, I prefer to play as like swarmy factions where I'm just sending out a bunch of guys like around by the mid game. I don't really like drawing out a game that long, but you know, it's like a fighting game. Like in Super Smash Brothers, some players gravitate towards like the really fast characters that can zip around and, you know, troll people, like Fox, and other players like my friend, they gravitate towards really slow, beefy characters like Ganondorf and Bowser. It's, like both characters are kind of valid, but not everyone's gonna like lumbering around as Bowser, you know, with freaking Pichu zipping around him. Some players do like that. What matters to me is what matters to me is what matters to me is as long as a Darknut player can defeat an Ordana player and vice versa. That's what really matters in the end.
I mean, every faction in Hyrule Conquest right now is actually fairly unique, so it's good, and they all play differently, and they can't, like, of course there are blatantly better factions than others. That's the case with most things, but everything is playable, so like it's just really, like, you can have fun with everything basically, and it's good. It's a good game. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, we definitely need to balance things out. We in the next few days, before I really dig into the Motlins, we probably should work on Ordana and try and fix them up first.
Well, speaking of balance, just before we continue for Iron Wolf, we'll shout out to pre-nerf Caretaker, good old times.
Stop.
Yeah, the Caretaker rush.
Caretaker's in Saria, dude.
It was underappreciated.
I mean, you could win the game in 2 minutes, so you know that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Poor Saria got nerfed.
The fastest Caretaker rush I ever saw was like 1:45. Some guy in my Discord like showed me a replay of him beating someone in 1:45. I was like, holy shit.
That's pretty impressive. I mean, I guess they're living up to the Zerg rush.
Goma are literally just Zelda Zerg, dude.
Speaking about the factions, I'm really happy that with, you know, Hyrule a Titan. I think it's way more fitting.
Yeah, Hyrule has been promoted to Titan instead of a hero, because after that last cinematic when she's freaking ripping up, you know, another Titan, I'm like, yeah, she's got to be a Titan. She can't be a hero. Because originally she was going to be a hero that was really good at fighting Titans and other heroes. She was specifically good at that, but I'm like, no, she would be able to mop up armies of people, of goons. Like 50 Hylian knights should not be able to gang up on her and kill her. Like, no, she has to be a Titan.
Yeah, she's extremely powerful.
So the Wizzrobes will be getting a fourth hero, and I think I've settled on who it is, but I don't know if I'm gonna spoil it.
Yeah, don't spoil it for the people.
I think you guys actually know who it is. I can't remember if I told you guys, but
yeah, we know.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I actually do not.
Okay, well I'll tell you in the Discord when we're
done.
Tell me
here.
later. Yeah. All you need to know is the color blue, which I guess cannot, like, in Nephi Canon works, because I've already established that Hylians that use the Wizzrobe's tools, their hair turns blue, and then it turns white, and then it falls out. So, blue is your clue.
I'm really happy though that, you know, Hyrule was a Titan. I remember we actually talked about this like ages ago, sometime last year, but I'm happy that, you know, she's a Titan now, because I remember being like, you know, when she had her hero status, I was like, she's too powerful.
Yeah, she's too powerful.
Just too powerful. And
too powerful.
I think just
I had to see her in action to realize, oh crap.
I have a question. So,
the Stalfos are an interconnected faction, like
Yes.
the Zora or whatever. How are you planning to go about that? Because I'm actually curious about that faction.
I haven't quite decided what exactly connects their bases together, but I think it's going to be like kind of like these canals that are full of like souls.
It could be like some kind of like fell magic type thing, you know.
Yeah, like basically a bunch of like souls are like passing between buildings and stuff. Yeah, the Stalfos are
You
going to
could
be
do
I
awesome.
think that
maybe
would be
like
really cool.
yeah, something like that. Or you could do like, let me think,
Some kind of like ectoplasm or something.
maybe
It's
I really like that idea, and I think it would be quite visually, striking to see. I think it would be really cool.
for what I have in my mind when I think of the like a Stalfos like base, I think of like Undercity from World of Warcraft or something.
I'm not
Like,
familiar
that-
enough with Undercity. I love Warcraft 3. It's probably like my favorite game ever, but I have not played World of Warcraft and I never will, so I've not caught up on this stuff in WoW. But I'll look it up.
No, basically, think the Scourge
Yeah,
underground.
the Scourge or the Forsaken in general.
Yeah, it's the Scourge essentially underground.
That's kind of how I envision. Oh, and you know, Deox, and actually, you guys have played WoW. You know how like there's those green pools in Undercity or whatever.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
like canals or something like that connect the Stalfos cities. That'd be pretty cool, actually. Or
The freaking body fluids.
Yeah.
The Bibles. We'll see. I have kind of some abstract ideas as to because it's kind of a joke now, but I actually modeled all of the Stalfos buildings a few years ago when I did the for their little images in the Total War version of the game. And right after I did renders for all the buildings, I somehow corrupted the file that all their buildings are in, so I have to redo all of their buildings.
Yikes.
And I'm tempted to redesign them just because of that. So I have a corrupted file with all the Stalfos buildings right now. I have to remodel them when I get to them, but
I'm actually really looking forward to that faction. They're pretty cool.
I actually do think the Stalfos are going to end up being a really awesome faction. It's kind of hard to imagine it because a lot of their mechanics aren't in the engine right now, and a lot of their mechanics were not in Total War either. Like,
Yeah, they're going
raising
to be
dead
able to
units.
resurrect corpses and stuff. So
Yeah, like and even in Total War, the Stalfos were not they how would I describe it? Like I couldn't depict the
not fully
Stalfos as
realized.
yeah, exactly. They weren't ugh, I'm getting really tongue tied. They were ugh, I'm sorry.
they weren't what you wanted them to be.
Yes, probably more than any other faction in the Total War version of the game. They were the least like they should
really?
be. Yeah.
Interesting.
Other factions that were like that were like the Goma, because you couldn't really swarm with the Goma either.
Right.
The River Zora
The
too.
Wizzrobes kind of didn't have a fully realized, like their core mechanic wasn't fully realized.
Yeah, the Wizzrobes
either,
couldn't teleport in Total War. Teleportation's going to be a pretty important Wizzrobe thing.
Poor Exodarian, dude. He's sitting here growing, like he's getting gray hairs just listening to us.
He's just like, oh my god, all these mechanics that are going to have to be programmed. Ah.
It's gonna be fun. I don't mind. I'm in it for the long run as well. It's not that big
Right.
a deal. It's just that Iron Wolf just likes to pester me with it. That's all.
Bullshit.
Yeah,
He's just so salty. He's just so salty all the time and tries to get me. He's like, "You have to balance Ordonia, god damn it."
Interestingly,
Didn't make a list then, Iron. Where's the list?
I have lists.
Interestingly,
Where is
now
it?
that I think about it, despite the fact that the Wizzrobes are like these like slow mage guys, they're oddly enough they're about like map mobility because they can teleport around and a lot of their units can hover over like certain terrains and stuff. Like their illusionists can hover over like chasms and go over mountains and stuff. So
Yeah, but that actually makes sense though, because they have such a mechanic. Obviously, their foot movement would be pretty bad
yeah.
because they have other movement options.
Yeah, so it's kind of
just
strange. Like the Wizzrobes are and their buildings are kind of like the Gorons and the Darknuts too. They have like the central cathedral or the college or the school that expands. But despite that, they're actually weirdly like maneuverable and mobile. They'd be really good at map control. Basically, they can teleport their guys between their bases around a map within just like 10 seconds instead of, having their armies run all the way there. So they'll have a lot of mobility despite the fact that their units are really slow moving, like on foot. Which is kind of an interesting dynamic. I wasn't really conscious of that till I just mentioned that they have a lot of teleportation. And I'm like, oh, that means they'll be able to move around everywhere really fast. So that's kind of interesting.
It's a Darknut counter faction.
I mean, we've been talking about the Sheikah and their stance and all, and some of the other factions, but how obviously the Volvagians are going to be somewhat unique. Like, how unique are we talking here about factions? Like, how unique do you want to make all of them?
As unique as possible without making it so that one faction just completely trumps others or can't go up against any other factions. There's some minor obviously there's some similarities between a few factions, like Lanayru and Kokiri have the way their bases are built are really similar. But that was intentional because Ordonia and Lanayru are both in terms of the lore and in terms of their gameplay. I consider them hybrid factions. They're like a combination of two playstyles from two other factions. In the case of Ordonia, they're supposed to be kind of a fusion of the Hylians and Gerudo in terms of like their playstyle. And Lanayru is supposed to be a fusion of the Kokiri playstyle and I guess the Hylians also. But those are the only two factions that are supposed to really feel like that.
And they're also supposed to excel at support,
Yes, they're supposed to be and they're both economic powerhouses too. And again, literally they are hybrids. Ordonia is a hybrid of all the different humanoid ethnicities, and Lanayru is a hybrid of Hylians and Zoras. Like literally. Yeah. they're the spawn of the union of Zoras and Hylian marriages. Thanks, Breath of the Wild.
For example, if we look at the current factions that are in the game, I'm trying to think, like the Goma are pretty unique with the fact that they have to make eggs and they have some kind of niche thing for them, and that's the same thing with the stances. And it doesn't have to be huge, but something like the stances or the Goma having to upgrade these eggs from scratch, like that adds something unique to their playstyle.
Yeah.
And I feel that every faction needs something small.
Definitely.
When you play them, it's like, oh, I'm definitely playing the Kokiri. I'm not playing the Hylians or something. And you need to have some of that feeling at least when you're playing a faction.
Some of them are pretty obvious, that more obvious than others. Like the Darknuts, that like most of their units are like hero units. Like they have one guy that levels up. That's kind of their sort of unique thing that none of the other factions have. Like they have a set of units that level up like the heroes will. They gain levels and they gain power. So they have like an army of heroes basically. The Moblins. Go on.
Well, heroes and titans themselves already will help with that a bit, because every titan, every hero in the game is going to have its own abilities when he levels up. So already there's some uniqueness right there already for every hero and faction with that. But then again, you have to.
I definitely want like a gameplay mechanic thing that each faction kind of has that other factions don't. Like the Stalfos, I think, is pretty obvious. They can, if they kill units, they can resurrect them as skeletons and turn them against their enemies. I think that's none of the other factions can do that. That's a cool, uniquely Stalfos mechanic. The Wizzrobes will be able to teleport. That's something no other faction can do. They'll be able to teleport their armies.
One thing that I feel is also very important is when I look at Battle for Middle-earth, when I enjoyed that game so much back when I bought it when I was a kid.
It's one of my favorites too.
Is that it is very enjoyable to play. Like factions have something unique to them. to some extent, and just the way the base are being built, especially from Battlefield 1. Of course, that's why they made E-Day.
Yep.
Because with that base setup, is that it's not very micromanage heavy. It's still somewhat simple to control the factions, but you still feel it still feels really cool, like what you're doing on the battlefield. But you don't have to have some kind of crazy like clicks per minute or something to get to play this game.
Yep.
So
that's why I wanted the freaking Battle for Middle-earth bases for the Gorons and some of the other factions too. That's my favorite. That in any of every RTS I play, that's probably my favorite style of base building. I was always kind of sad they got rid of that in the second Battle for Middle-earth. It was a great mechanic. Oddly enough, the only other game I could think of that used that was Halo Wars, of all things.
That game was really bad.
Yeah, Halo Wars wasn't that good, but they used that base building mechanic from Battle for Middle-earth, where you have the central structure with these plots around it that like expand the base. And I really like that style of base building, but most RTSs don't use it for some reason. And I think it's because it naturally encourages turtling, and most RTS games like really discourage turtling.
there's nothing wrong with turtling, but there have
there is
ways to beat it.
You would hate Supreme Commander, because Supreme Commander actually encourages turtling. You can win a game of Supreme Commander by building a giant base and just like loading up tons of artillery cannons in your base and just lobbing artillery all the way across the map.
I'm one of those players that sits in his base the entire game and then at the end of the game rushes you with a huge, very technologically advanced army.
I hate people like you.
I'm that kind of player.
If you're that kind of player, you'll like the Darknuts then. That's basically the Darknuts in a nutshell. They hold their ground and then they train up their really good heroic guys, and then they just send them all out to mop up the map. That's an oversimplification, obviously, but that's kind of the general skeleton of how the Darknuts should play.
The noob faction.
The noob faction.
Well, that's also why I'm an advocate for the battalion system, because it will make it a lot easier and more streamlined.
Yes.
To control the units. Well, it makes it easier to control, but it doesn't really take too much away from the gameplay, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That,
go on.
Sorry, go ahead.
You first.
No, you go ahead. Okay. That was gonna bring me to my next thing. Is we're talking about unique mechanics for each faction. What's gonna be unique about Labrynna, Labrynna, besides the fact that they have guns, obviously.
They have guns.
Mechanically,
Labrynna will be able to have automated resource generation. Like, say there's like a stone deposit. I mean, they'll have workers that they can send to gather that stone deposit, but they'll be able to build like a mine on it that automatically gathers the resources from the stone deposit, and they won't need to worry about micromanaging their workers, basically. They will at the start of a match, but as they progress through the tech levels, it'll get to a point where they don't need to worry about their workers at all.
Right. Okay, that's interesting.
So
is there anything else?
And it kind of fits with their theme of, I guess, advancing through technological means, as they steadily are progressing towards automation.
Right. I assume you'll
and obviously they have guns, so there's that too.
Oh yeah.
Although New Hyrule has guns also, so that isn't a uniquely Labrynna thing.
Right.
And the Locomo will have gunpowder also. So there's 3 factions in the game that have obvious forms of gunpowder.
Oh yeah, look, I forgot about the Locomo.
Everyone forgets about Locomo, but that's fine.
I'm just noticing the chat. Come on, guys. Chat, don't discuss Canon Zelda here. Discuss Hyrule Conquest,
Yeah, we...
I mean, we can discuss Canon Zelda too if they want, I suppose.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and just assume that the Locomo are gonna have buildings connected by train tracks.
Yep, they're gonna have little train tracks that connect all their buildings. And I'm thinking, as a mechanic, I'm not sure how I'm gonna do this yet, and they're so far off. I haven't put tons of thought into it, but I'm thinking, as a mechanic, they will be able to move faster if they're within the proximity of the train tracks. So
Oh,
they're
okay.
I'm not sure how that's gonna work yet, but I want their train tracks to do something with speed or resources or something. I'm not sure yet.
Hmm.
The Locomo are so far off in the future that I don't even know when I'll get to them. That I'm not really worried about them right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that just was something that came to mind.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't
What else?
worry about those yet.
What are other factions in the base game that I haven't that we haven't talked?
We haven't talked
Oh,
about
the
the
fairies.
River Zora. Oh, the
No,
the
no, no.
fairies, the
Fairies.
the
Oh,
River
yeah, yeah.
Zora.
I know the
Who
River
else?
Zora aren't gonna have territory. I know that.
Yeah,
for
the
sure.
River Zora have no territory. And I think they're the only faction that's going to have no territory. Which will be really interesting because the game territory plays a really important role in the game, so it'll be really interesting to have them just throw that out the window and turn everything upside down.
Right.
It'll be really cool. The fairies actually have something kind of similar to the Sheikah, like the stances, where they can change the seasons.
Oh,
And
yeah,
depending
yeah.
on what the season is, their stuff changes. But unlike the Sheikah, because when you change the stances with the Sheikah, their units actually like change into a completely different unit. I think with the fairies, their units won't actually change into completely different units. Just kind of, it's like their units are the same in each season, but they visually change and like the nature of their attacks or abilities change or something. Like obviously in winter, their fairies will have like ice base attacks. I think that one's kind of a no brainer.
But will the player have control over the seasons? And
Yes,
will it
they will.
only affect? Will it only affect the fairies, or will it also affect the actual map?
If it's possible, I'd like it to affect the map too, but I'm not sure how to pull that off to where it like affects the entire map.
I think
What I was gonna do at the moment is the area affected by the season is just in their base. Like say you go to the winter season, everything around their
Yeah,
base
I was gonna
becomes all
say-
frozen.
having
Yeah, I
the
think it's
seasons
better to have
affect-
it as an. I think it's better to have it as an aura.
Exactly, yeah.
I agree. I was about to say, if you have seasons affect the whole map and affect both factions, that seems kind of unfair.
However,
So
there should be like
well, that
there should
actually-
be some effect to the enemies within the aura.
oddly enough, the season thing ties into Nintendo canon because in Oracle of Seasons, when you change the seasons with their power, it only affected the small area where you were. Like if you moved off of the
Right.
area you were and you came back, it would go back to the original season that area was in.
Right.
So yeah, the fairy's ability to change seasons, I think, will only be local. It'll just be within the radius of their bases and units. So like when they're in winter and their units are moving, everything around all their units will have an aura that kind of makes everything around them like cold and move a little slower. And
Right,
obviously in
yeah.
the summer it'll probably be the opposite where things are faster. I have a rough outline of kind of ideas of what each season does that I guess I can post on the Discord, but it's not quite finalized yet.
How many are there? Just two?
There's 4 seasons.
Okay. I didn't know if...
They're the Earth seasons, spring, summer, fall, and winter.
Right. Right. I didn't know if you're just doing like summer and
Would-
winter or just two of them. I don't know.
Would
Nah,
spring
no.
have would spring have reduced unit recruitment like time?
Yeah,
I was thinking
that-
spring actually would probably be when they start. Spring might be when they actually start pumping out units because that's when.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I'm thinking.
that's what I was thinking. Yeah, I was
And-
thinking that fits nicely with that.
Summer to me is when they're at their most aggressive. That's when they move faster and they're just more aggressive in general. Fall is when they gather resources best, probably. The fall harvest, and then winter is I guess kind of like their defensive mode where everything around their base becomes icy and it slows down the movement of enemies and things like that.
But increased health and stuff, maybe.
Maybe. I'll have to think on that. My ideas for them are kind of general right now, not specific.
Would you make the changing the seasons like manually or
Yes, it's
like
a
on
manual
timer?
thing. They'll have
Okay.
it's kind of like the stances where instead of teching up
Right.
from like the town phase and the village phase to the city phase or whatever, they switch through the seasons. However, unlike the Sheikah, I don't think I'm not sure because in the Oracle of Seasons you couldn't change to the season you wanted. It cycled through them, in the way that they naturally happen.
I was about to say that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you should do it like in order. Like if you advance to, you can't just jump to winter or go back to spring.
Exactly.
You have to go to fall.
Exactly. I think they'll have to continuously cycle
thematically, I think
order.
would be cool. Yeah, I think it would be cooler to have it cycle, and it would also separate them a bit from the Sheikah. And like, I guess it would also add quite a layer of strategy where you kind of have to plan ahead how you're gonna play if it's a cycle.
Yes.
Which is really cool.
I'll have to. See, the fairies aren't that far in the future too. I think there's just 4 or 5 factions, and then it's time to do the fairies. So they're before the Sheikah even.
Yeah.
The fairies will be pretty cool.
What's going to be unique about the Lizalfos?
The Lizalfos will have a branching tech tree based on their pantheon. They'll have different because each faction kind of has like one tech tree that they can fully complete by the end of a match. The Lizalfos will be able to mix and match sections of multiple tech trees depending on what gods they choose from their pantheon. Kind of like Age of Mythology, actually. And that's why they have two possible titans that they can bring out too. They can only bring out one of them, but they'll, depending on how they go through their tech tree, they'll be able to end up at one of 2 different titans. So the Lizalfos actually will have more unit options, but they can only bring out 20 unit types like each of the factions. It just depends on how they go through their tech tree. Which actually, that kind of was in the Total War version of the game too. It was just limited to 2 branches, whereas now I can like have a bunch of different branches that they can mix and match between because of how teching up works in 0 AD.
Yeah.
Where in Total War it was just like, the urban Lizalfos and the wild Lizalfos, but now like it's all based on the gods of their pantheons they pick between. So that'll be really cool, and I think they're the only faction at the moment that can do that, where they have a really broken up tech tree that they can mix and match. So that'll be pretty cool, I think.
That'd be good. Who else is in the base game that I'm trying to think of?
We did fairies, Lizalfos, Deku Scrubs.
Oh yeah, what's unique about them?
Deku Scrubs have a ton of creature units. They're kind of like I was saying earlier, where they start out with a bunch of like really crappy swarmy units, and then they have a lot of really strong beefy creature units towards the end of the game. They'll have to deal with the Mad Scrub problem, which I'm not sure how I'll implement that yet. They'll have to deal with the Mad Scrub disease, which they could probably use against their enemies somehow.
What if the Mad Scrub disease was like a win condition type thing, like they use it against their opponents, but it's like a big gamble because it'll like hurt them as well.
I'm thinking that there's a chance that when one of their units dies, it spawns, like they turn into a Mad Scrub that starts attacking everything. Maybe. I'm mostly spitballing, but I want the Mad Scrubs to kind of be a mechanic that they can use or have to deal with. And gambling seems to fit with them because they're kind of like I compare them kind of to the Skaven from Warhammer, where they kind of like they're really powerful, but their stuff can backfire on them.
Yeah.
What if like sorry, go ahead, Deox.
Nah, I'm just spitballing an idea. Like, it would be cool, considering that it's a disease. Let's say you have a bunch of units and it's on a timer essentially. And when they hit the Mad Scrub phase, they get a massive buff, but there's also like penalties reaching.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, something like that.
And
I
then
like that. I'll
you
jot
could,
that down.
and like at that time, you have to kind of manage recruiting new units to replace the ones going crazy.
I have an idea.
Yeah. Here's an idea.
Okay,
so you put the Mad Scrub disease on a timer, And then after that timer, like it starts as soon as the game starts, and it just the timer starts ticking. And then once the timer like hits 0 or whatever, the play kicks in. All your units and everything gets a huge buff, but maybe not all of your stuff, but a lot of your stuff starts slowly being converted to the Gaia faction, you know, the neutral faction or
Yes,
whatever.
you're kind of all thinking the same thing I am, but go on.
Yeah. And then maybe if you want to stop it, you can like research a cure or something that kind of stops it, but then the timer starts up again.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was gonna say. The Mad Scrub thing, yeah, it basically supercharges your units, and the longer it goes on, the stronger they become. But if you have it go on too long, you start to lose control of your units, and they start to attack everything around them. So you have to kind of gamble how long you want to push that buff that they get from the Mad Scrub problem.
Like how long?
And if it, you have to basically stop the disease. You have to stop it before you completely lose your units to it. Or if you're feeling really lucky, you could push it to like the last second before you lose your units completely to the Mad Scrub disease. That is a cool idea. I'm gonna put that down and we'll flesh that out when I get to them.
That's good because they're coming like relatively soon. So
yeah, they're the first faction after
really
the
cool.
Moblins and Darknuts.
Because I think like if the Mad Scrub was like it was on some sort of timer, it would really fit into it. Like you by playing very defensively, you will get a lot of Mad Scrubs,
right?
Which has its perks, but it will also punish you for playing too defensively, which you would have to mitigate by recruiting new Scrubs, which I just think would be a really cool like a mechanic to keep in mind when you play them.
So you're suggesting that they always succumb to the Mad Scrub disease? And
Yes.
basically the way to solve that is to throw your units away before it's too late.
Yeah, exactly.
So that would definitely encourage them being very aggressive. So yeah, kind of like another swarmy faction. Sorry, Iron Wolf.
It's okay. That's interesting. The timer, I mean, the amount of time would probably just be a lot longer, but like I kind of know what you're saying. Like, so you're saying like every time a scrub unit is created, like their individual timer starts going off, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
I do like that idea too. I like both ideas. If we do Deox's one, maybe their late game creature units actually don't suffer from the Mad Scrub disease.
Yeah. That was the point.
That would encourage the paradigm shift from going from swarming to tanking.
Right.
Which was intentional. That would encourage them to throw swarms of units early in a game because they're going to lose those units anyway to the Mad Scrub disease, and that'll encourage them to focus on the units that they won't lose to the disease late in the game and shift away from the units that they will lose. That'll encourage the player to actually want to have that paradigm shift instead of so I like that idea actually.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's cool.
So like,
go ahead.
No, I was just thinking because that you have all your fodder and you're essentially burning through all the fodder, the fodder scrubs to reach the end game where you can kind of, mitigate their entire mechanic a bit. But essentially, it's something you deal with throughout until you reach that stage.
I also like the idea that you can manually trigger the Mad Scrub disease on a unit if you want, like preemptively, like just have like an ability called Piss Them Off or something, and they this will work especially when we have the battalions and just every scrub in the battalion like starts arguing with each other and they all just get pissed off and start attacking everything around them. That'll be pretty cool. So I really like I do like both ideas, but I'm leaning more towards the every scrub is on a countdown timer. We'll just have to balance out how long that timer should be, and it'll probably take a few versions to get it right. There are gonna be players who are like, it doesn't last long enough, and other players who are like, nah, it happens too fast. You need to make more time. So we'll have that'll be the thing we need to work out, but. I like the idea a lot. cool.
I mean, as long as it's not, as long as the duration is not too short, and which makes them frustrating to play. But I still think it's something, because thematically it's something that they have to deal with, and I think it would be, it should be long enough that you can actually do something with the units, but it shouldn't be so long that the entire mechanic becomes irrelevant.
My gut feeling right now is maybe 15 minutes. And maybe you can research technologies that increase the timer.
Yeah.
Increase the timer.
Yeah, like research a technology that makes the timer last a bit longer so they don't succumb to the disease quite as fast. But there's nothing, or maybe they have an extremely late game technology that cures the disease.
I mean, it could be cool to have a technology that buffs the disease.
Oh,
so when
that
the units
too. Yeah,
go
that
crazy,
too.
Maybe it like slows it or something.
like imagine that you can, if you want to go bomb, you have like a technology that buffs them when they go mad, so that they just go, they get really strong when they go crazy.
Or even a tech that lets you control them still for a limited time after they succumb to the disease.
Yeah.
So like say you
cool
research this technology and then they go mad scrubs because of that technology, you can still control them for like another minute or two before you completely lose control of them.
Yeah.
And the thing is, even if you're not being aggressive, if you're about to lose units to the disease, you can just park them like in choke points on the map and then let them go, like almost have them be like set up a blockade around an enemy's base with their units that you're about to lose so that they're afraid to leave their base. So there's still all kinds of stuff you can do with like the mad scrub problem other than just throwing your units away at an enemy base. Like you can just set them up as like Gaia turrets basically around the map.
Yeah.
And just avoid those areas with your own forces. So there's all kinds of weird things you could do with that. So that's pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah, it sounds really fun. So
that's a cool
sounds
mechanic.
bonkers.
That'd be good.
It's just gonna need a lot of balancing, but everything is gonna need that. Case in point, Ordonia province.
Yes.
We'll work on Ordonia probably on Monday if you want.
No worries, man. I really honestly don't do much besides play WoW and school. So anytime is good for me.
All right. Maybe on Monday I'll contact you and we'll figure out what we can do to nerf Ordonia.
Sure, we'll talk, and I'll rework my list because I had a list of things to be changed, but I haven't updated it in a while, so take a look at that.
And then we'll have them nerfed when we release the Moblins and Darknuts.
Because they're really the only outlier. Besides them, is very balanced right now. I had this conversation with Exodarian not too long ago.
It's funny because even in the Total War version of the game, Ordonia Province was incredibly overpowered. Which is funny because thematically they're just a bunch of peasants. Like, they don't have good armor, they don't have like good training, they don't have a good education. Right. They're literally a bunch of nobodies that just, they run their farms. And I'm not trying to like insult farmers. Like, obviously agriculture is incredibly important to a society. But they're not soldiers, so it's really funny to me that this army of angry peasants is more powerful than, the freaking rock monsters that live in the volcano.
Yeah, it is funny.
You're not gonna change their actual stats, right? You're just going to change, perhaps gathering rates and fix some of the stuff.
Yes, I think the last time Iron Wolf and I talked about the nerfing them, we were considering getting rid of gathering from all their cavalry units.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Which I guess makes sense. I mean, it would be kind of annoying to get off of your goat or your horse and pull out a freaking pickaxe and harvest.
I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue as much with like their infantry gathering because one, it makes sense with their society, of course, because that's why you gave them that mechanic.
Yeah.
But also, from what I played most of the time, I really only used the infantry for like defending my base, which I think that's fair. But when I build an army of like 40 or 50 horsemen and I just have them gather while I wait for the while I wait.
Just
for the
describing
next
that is making me cringe. I realize how powerful that is to have like late game units also gathering resources, like to pay
It's just
themselves
like-
off.
Yeah, it's like I have them gathering while I wait on the next 50 to be made.
Oh my goodness! We'll nerf Ordonia in the next few days before I really dig into the moblins.
That'll be good.
And
I'm really excited to
citizens
start on the
being
moblins
built-
though.
Citizens being built from houses. Sounds like it should be removed.
We could get
Yeah.
rid of that. I mean, thematically, that kind of makes sense for them, but
It does, but that's another thing too. I was gonna say because you can get a lot of workers out very very fast, and
yeah.
even
And to
though
be fair,
like,
that was intentional. But if it is like too
Right.
powerful, then it needs to be nerfed.
I mean, if they already have all these other units they can gather, I don't think that's too big of a problem.
Yeah. I do eventually want a faction that can train workers from houses, though. Was it the Spartans that could do that in 0 AD? There was a faction in 0 AD that could do that.
I believe so.
I think it was the Spartans, which are like my favorite faction in 0 AD right now, even though they can't build walls. I'm
think
just
for a
not
faction
sure
that isn't
thematically what
Ordonia,
faction
that's
would do
more
it.
fair.
Huh?
Um,
Like Ordonia is the only faction I could think of where they would just walk up to their houses and be like, "Hey, come fight," and they'd be like, "Yeah, let me grab my pitchfork and my freaking frying
My
pan and let's
torch,
go
yeah.
let's go beat up some moblins." I can't think of any other faction that would
Maybe,
just do that. Maybe the
maybe the-
Kokiri, but
maybe the Sheikah, you know? Because think about it. Here,
yeah,
no,
probably.
Hear me out, because you know the
But they can only
Peasants
do
are
it. They
ninjas
can
and
only
whatnot.
do it in weeaboo stance.
yeah, in Weeaboo stance
Yeah.
they can train from their houses because you know you go.
Yep. Okay.
like, you go knock on the peasant.
You're on a roll with the Sheikah,
Katana.
man.
dude. That's, I mean,
You're on a roll with the Sheikah and all the ideas for them.
Yeah, they're. I'm looking forward to them. So I think that would actually be pretty good. Like during their weeb stance, they can go, you know, knock on the door and be like, "Yo, grab your katana and your ninja outfit.
Go grab
stop
your
farming.
katana."
It's time to go fight for the shogun." You know.
That's great.
Did we talk about the cult of Agahnim and Malice?
Oh no, we haven't talked about Agahnim yet.
Oh, we didn't. Yeah, I forgot about them.
Well, I keep forgetting about him. Well, not. I don't think forgetting about him is the phrase to use. I haven't put much thought into him because he's so far in the future. But Aghanim's mechanic is converting enemy units.
Kind of like priests from Age
Yes.
mythology.
And most of his army is a bunch of basically they're not literal zombies, but they're brainwashed people that
They're like
act like
thralls or whatever.
zombies. He has
Yeah.
a bunch of brainwashed Hylians and Darknuts and Sheikah kind of units, and they're kind of like these automaton zombies that take his orders. And he'll be able to do that to enemy units. He'll have some units that can turn enemy units into like brain dead zombies that just go around punching things. So, someone actually I haven't been paying
Okay.
attention to the chat, but someone mentioned the hero roster for Agahnim. I have 3 of the heroes, but there's a 4th hero I haven't quite decided on yet.
Are they on the wiki? The 3 that you already have?
I'm not sure if they're on the wiki. I actually I'm not really in charge of the wiki, so there's other people that have been taking care of the wiki, like Looper.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not
the
really.
only ones on-
I would love
the
to
only-
work on the wiki. I just don't know if I can devote the time to it.
Yeah,
The
you
only
have
ones on the
people for
wiki
that.
at the moment. Yeah, the only ones on the wiki is Onan and Agahnim.
Yeah,
because,
Onan and
it's-
Agahnim. Actually, I think the 3rd hero I'm thinking of was moved to Majora's faction. It was the 3rd Princess Zelda.
Oh yeah.
I think I actually moved her to Majora's faction, but so actually
Or
I
Marala.
might only have 2 heroes for Agahnim right now.
Wait, sorry, I was typing something. Is Marala a Aghanim hero?
I think she's been moved to Majora.
Oh, damn. I'm a big fan of her.
Yeah, I like her a lot too.
She's
especially
personally
with
my
all the
favorite
tattoos.
of the Zeldas.
Yanera is still my favorite for the meme.
No one likes Yanera. I actually think I like the fourth one a lot, Araya. I kind of just like how optimistic that character is, despite the fact she basically becomes an emo, like an emo.
Weep?
She
Yes.
becomes a pretty miserable person,
Weep.
you know, after she's. I mean, I don't know if I want to spoil it for people, but
Yeah.
we
We know
Yeah.
her fate.
Yeah. Obviously, I have a soft spot for Tetra for obvious reasons. I mean, she's kind of, other than Link, she's kind of like the center of everything, really.
Yeah.
She's always kind of been like on the cover. I mean, originally it actually was Morala that was on all the like covers and stuff. It was the third Princess Zelda, but I think Tetra is a lot more important to everything that goes on. So she's kind of hijacked her grandmother.
Diox,
Right.
did you just say your favorite one is Yanera?
Huh? What? Yeah, I said that. Yeah.
What?
What?
I
Because
thought
it's a
I thought
meme.
your favorite was the first one, the ironclad bitch. She's my
Do you have
favorite.
something against Nylin?
No,
Why
Nylin
so
is
much hate against-
awesome. Nylin
much-
is my actual favorite. My actual favorite. I was just memeing with Yanera because, you know, nothing happens during her reign.
No. No, I'd have to. Is that a spoiler, by the way, about Oraya? Are we gonna mention that?
People know about it, but I'm not sure how well known it is who she becomes.
When will this occur? Will it occur in the storyline or what?
Yeah, it does occur in the storyline. I mean, the character she becomes shows up in the next arc, but you don't. I mean, it's probably pretty easy to guess who it is because, you know what? I'm just gonna spoil it on here. She's Sheik, but the way I want it to happen is because Nintendo keeps acting like it's a huge surprise that Zelda is Sheik, and it's like it's not a surprise. Like we get it. Like Sheik is Zelda. Like there's that one scene in Hyrule Warriors that just made me facepalm when Sheik shows up and Impa is just like, who the hell are you?
Who are
and
you?
and I'm like, you trained. I'm trying not to rant about Hyrule Warriors and go all spurgy, but you trained her to become Sheik. How do you not know who she is? And it's because they keep trying to force. They keep trying to force like this plot twist that Sheik is Zelda, and it's like everyone's played Super Smash Brothers. Everyone knows Sheik is Zelda. So I was just gonna have a little joke where Sheik presents herself to Link, and Link's just like, "Oh, I know it's you, Zelda." And then Tetra in the distance is like, "What the hell's going on, Link?" And he's like, "Oh, I guess you're not Zelda." But you know,
It's like everyone knows Ocarina of Time exists.
yeah,
everyone
it's
knows
not
that-
it's not a twist. I wanted to set up a joke that
Yeah.
When
everyone
Anybody
instantly
that-
knows who Sheik is. Link's like, "Oh, hey Zelda, what are you doing in that costume?" And then
For
When-
anybody that thinks that's a spoiler, also a spoiler alert: Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father.
oh my god,
Whoa,
whoa,
what? Fuck! Jesus, man.
All right, sorry. Go ahead, Exodarian.
when are we going to see Sheik in the story?
In the next arc, in the Labrynna
Okay.
one, that's when she first shows up.
Well, just because I was mentioning Marhalis, she has a pretty sad ending, right? Like with
Yeah.
was it Ganondorf?
Most of the
Ganondorf?
most of the characters, and I know this sounds kind of like bad, but most of the characters actually have pretty sad ends to their life. Like they have a lot of good times to their life, and then they just have like kind of like a tragic kind of death. Like yeah, Morala is just beaten to death by Ganondorf.
Yeah. Except Yanera though, she doesn't.
No, she doesn't. She had a peaceful life, and things were fine when she ruled Hyrule, and she died in her bed, like peacefully. So
Yeah.
Sounds a bit.
That's
sounds
boring.
Grimdark. Sounds a bit grimdark.
yeah, it's too edgy.
Are you?
I
you
mean-
edgy?
If you look, honestly though, it's really like it's relatively okay. I think it's relatively okay. If you look at the huge ass like line of monarchs in the Kingdom of Hyrule's history, most of them haven't had any, you know, eventful lives. They're just kind of, you know, they shat and they ate and they died.
And the story doesn't focus on those characters because they don't have him. Like Ynera, the story, she's not really in the story because nothing interesting happened during her life. The story's just the interesting bits in between.
Yeah,
But I mean, I'm
much.
not gonna sugarcoat it. Like, death sucks. So like, even if you have a peaceful death, there's kind of a tragic element to dying. Like, unless like you're fully committed to some cause and you like sacrifice yourself in like some heroic thing, like there's not really a non-tragic death really, like even if you just die in bed. So yeah, and because like so much time happens in like so much time passes in my Zelda game, like everyone dies, and I don't mean that in like a memey joking way, like everyone eventually dies, so everyone kind of has a sucky end of their life. Like there's no getting around that.
It's just someone kicks the bucket earlier.
Yeah, some deaths are more tragic than others, I guess, because they die before their time, I guess. But not everyone gets brutally murdered though. Like Game of Thrones, it's not that kind of tragic. Just the general tragedy of dying in general. Like death kind of sucks, or at least the process of death.
Yeah.
Kinda rough.
So yeah, like every character at some point, like, you know, they kind of have a sad end because it's sad for a character to die. Unless you absolutely hate the character, then it's probably a happy thing that they die. Like I think most
do we
people will
hate
be
them
happy.
for?
I think most people will be happy if Mido finally dies. No one likes
I-
Mido, including me.
So I wanted Mido to die for a long time until the most recent cinematic.
You don't
Mido
want him
is
to die
misunderstood.
now.
No. Mido is misunderstood, guys. Come on.
Oh no.
Mido, he really is just like the stereotypical like selfish incel, like, and it kind of, I mean, that kind of was intentional because he basically was like sheltered by his father figure, and he was never really, he wasn't, and it's the same thing with most of the Kokiri. He wasn't taught how to be an adult, so he's basically like the spoiled child who never really grew up, who, you know, he's mad he's not getting his way. And, you know, that's a very dangerous mentality to be in. Especially
I
if
only
that
want
person
him to
gains
win.
any kind of power. If a person with the mind of a child gains power, it's generally a disaster, which I actually think is the theme of the Majora's Mask game in general. I actually think that was intentional on Nintendo's part, but
Well,
It's an interesting
Mido,
You
I see
know-
Mido as just this kid, like, who was a brat. He never really grew up, and then all of a sudden he says, like, I don't get what I want, so I'm just going to throw a huge temper tantrum, which has huge consequences. And then eventually he started to figure out that maybe he didn't make the right choices.
yep, he's starting to grow up now that he's being punished for the things that he's done.
Right.
So-
And I've kind of grown. He's kind of grown because of that.
So it's like everyone has like flaws. Like I think it resonates with a few people that, you know, they were freaking stupid when they were kids, and now they grow up and they want to fix it. You know, they want to get some kind of salvation. That's what Mido kind of represents, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I think Mido should. Honestly, I think Mido should have the best ending because the douchey people always have the best endings, and all the good people die.
This is true. This is true.
that's really cynical of
Yeah,
you.
he should just get like the best ending.
Mido wins the game of Hyrule Thrones. He marries Sidon.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a cunt, and he just won. You know, that's at the end of that.
Mido and Sidon take over Hyrule.
Oh no. Yikes.
Oh,
Shout out
jeez.
shout out to Emperor Commodus, the Roman Empire. You know that guy.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I actually Mido started to grow on me right before Agatha's death. Actually, I still didn't like him, but it's not. I guess I like him more within the context of the story, and at the same time, I can kind of understand, you know, his character as well.
I guess
It's hard to.
I guess it's because that's
I
like the
blame the
first.
Great Decatry.
Yeah. He really, and even Saria, who's not like a wicked person. They really are the result of bad parenting. Of just sheltering the children from the world, which I don't want to go off on a huge rant about we live in a society, but I think that's actually been a huge problem with at least Western cultures. So many people have just been like sheltered by the previous generation from the world, and now we're all being dumped in the world, and we have no idea what to do, and everyone's freaking out and going insane, and it's like, well, why no one taught us these things? What were you expecting?
Yeah, I was just about to say that if you really want to have someone to blame, you should blame the great Deku Tree, because he made some really dumb decisions. Like, obviously, he had the best intentions, but that doesn't always, automatically make everything all right.
The sad thing is, if he hadn't have died and he managed to, I guess, keep Maito within his flock, eventually it would have actually worked out when they had all, undergone the transformation into Koroks, because Koroks are, like, psychologically and physically, they're, like, such a different creature from, their origins that, they just go have fun in the woods somewhere. But, he died, so now he has a bunch of, all these children that don't know how to deal with the world, and they're all lost and probably having psychotic breakdowns.
Well...
Yeah.
The great Deku Tree is a bit like Marcus Aurelius, who sheltered his son Commodus, and Commodus became a brat who wanted to bring the empire down instead of actually rule it.
Yeah.
And then he made a blacklist of people he wanted to assassinate, and then he put his own sister on the list.
I didn't know that, actually.
He just had that lying around on his desk. That's how arrogant he was. And his sister found the list with her name on it, and she was like, "Oh, maybe we should do something about this." And then he got killed in his own bathtub, I believe.
Sounds like another character.
Yeah.
I love how I love how everyone. Like Game of Thrones, for example, everyone's like, man, this is so horrible, all these things happening in Game of Thrones, but it's not even close to how just insane actual history is. Just all the insane things that happen throughout history, especially with people in power.
I'm just going to say, as a historian, it breaks my heart whenever me or someone else writes something and they're like, that's just like Game of Thrones. It breaks my heart. And it actually makes me want to, drop a toaster in the bathtub. It really does. It actually really makes me sad.
I thought you were a chill person, Deox.
Yeah, but I have some pride.
He's an academic historian, but I can understand. I can understand getting upset at something like it's kind of like I'm trying to think of an example that. On my end, but I can't think of one. Like a subject I'm really knowledgeable in, and when someone says something and it's just like, how do you not know that? It really bothers me.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that it's fine that you don't know a specific thing from history, or you're not well versed in a specific topic. That's fine, but don't assume that whatever pop cultural phenomenon that is big at the moment is the one that invented it. That's
actually a pretty good example is the whole years ago when I was basically going off on about how the Kingdom of Hyrule is technically a hereditary dictatorship. And some people were like, no, Hyrule's not a dictatorship, because they hear the word dictatorship and they instantly think a fascist regime that wants to destroy the world. But no, a monarchy is a dictatorship determined by heredity. The royals and the nobles have control over people, and they use their military force to enact their will. Obviously, it's not as simple as, they just boss everyone around, because, if the peasants are in... if their peasants' lives are so shitty, you'll have yet another failed peasant rebellion. But it's like
peasant revolts never work.
Something that always upsets me, and I guess this can't be helped, but modern people trying to project a modern view of the world back into the past. Most people in the West generally think, democracy is awesome and individualism is awesome. But if you go back in the past, that almost never existed at all. Power was all about, heredity and or if you were lucky, just extreme wealth, and you can buy your power. Individualism, no, you had no individual rights at all. Like it was all about, the family and the society on a larger level. Like these modern ideas barely existed, and so it always upsets me when like well, there's a medieval story and there's like this like advanced like republican democracy, and I'm like, that wouldn't really exist, at least not in such a expansive form. Like there's a reason there wasn't democracies that were really powerful until the modern age.
Just to reply to you, Darknut, like why I say that is that some few highlighted examples doesn't make it a success stories. The vast majority of history is filled with failed peasant revolts. A couple doesn't necessarily mean that it's a viable thing, which it's not. It really is not. The vast amount of examples that we have from history are failures. And there will always be some exceptions to that, but it's for the most part they usually don't work, especially in medieval times.
Yeah, so it always kind of upsets me when like I'm trying my best to portray Hyrule as like a legitimate medieval society, and the it's a meme now. Oh, it's too dark and edgy, and I just want to be like, just go read about Rome and all the insanity in Europe. King Henry VIII. Go read about these things in history, and my interpretation of Hyrule will probably be pretty mild.
Hyrule Conquest is really mild. It's extremely mild if you compare it to actual history. It's
shout out to the Plantagenets.
And the thing is, history wasn't even like it was all shitty. It's just things just shit happened. I mean, shit still happens now too, despite all of our awesome technology and our individualism. Like shit still happens. I don't know. I feel like I'm going on a rant now. I should probably stop and go back on topic.
Well, just to quickly go back to the part about Commodus, because I think it was a bit misunderstood, because I said I compared him to Mido, like sheltered. Like Commodus was not actually sheltered. Like he was put in through intense training it was brought on campaigns. But because his father kept doing that, he really started to hate the entire concept of the Empire. And that's why he became so bratty. And it's not a secret that he was still born in the purple. He had absolutely no idea what was actually going on, I feel, and he really wanted to bring the Empire down and just focused on throwing these huge freaking games in the Colosseum. And then eventually they even found out, it's like he just had this plan to sell the grain supplies and Rome would starve within 2 years or something. Because he didn't care.
So he's basically Akazu.
He just didn't care, and and he just became so arrogant that it cost him his life. So
don't look at me. This is way outside my field, and I think Roman history hot take is really boring and it's overdone to death. That's your daily controversy from me.
But yeah, just like the people who are saying Game of Thrones is really brutal, if you look at actual history, like for example the Plantagenets or some stuff that Henry VIII did.
Henry VIII is the best.
That's some interesting history right there, and that's more brutal than.
Fun fact: Zelda's funeral outfit that appeared in the last cinematic was actually inspired by the German outfit that Anne of Cleves wears. She was one of the one of the wives of King Henry VIII. Because I really like that outfit that Anne of Cleves wears. Poor girl. Poor everyone involved with King Henry.
I mean, the thing is, like, that's why, if you have an interest for history, I recommend if the prospect of sitting with a bunch of bearded dudes at some cabin at a supposed conference, quotation marks, and laughing about people that died horribly in the past, if that sounds fun, you should go. Consider a career within history. That's pretty much what we're doing. We're just, laughing up dumb people. And
that is one thing about history. I've talked to you about this before. which is why I appreciate Monty Python. Despite the fact of how like horrific things that happen in history is, there's always like a weird sense of like dark humor to it. Like there's something really funny about all the terrible things. Like even King Henry, like the guy basically created an entire church just so he could divorce his wives. A church which still exists to this day. It's like if it wasn't for all the people that died, all of these things would be in like sitcoms, basically. Like I could see, like man, I'm gonna make a church so I can divorce my wife. That's something that would be in a comedy show, like, or a Monty Python thing. Like
we should write that in Hyrule Consequence.
Like the whole entire first Crusade, you don't have to change anything. It would be a Monty Python movie. The jokes just write themselves. Like the whole peasant army and everything. Like the whole First Crusade is the plot of a Monty Python movie. It's amazing.
Oh, the People's Crusade. Oh boy.
Yes. And if it wasn't for the fact that so many people died, it would just be like a comedy. Because there's just so much insanity involved with all the decision making, like that all these people made in the past. It's just amazing.
They should make one about the Fourth Crusade. That one was pretty funny.
Most people gravitate towards the Third Crusade because it's, I guess, the least funny. It's also the most romanticized, but
the Lionheart, right?
Yeah, Richard the Lionheart and Saladin. They're generally, most people when they think Crusade, they think of the Third Crusade and not the other ones. Even though Richard the Lionheart only participated in like 3 battles in the entire thing. But the point is, despite like all of the edginess of history, there's like a weird dark humor to all of it. And it's probably just because we're so removed from it that it's easy to look on all these people you had no connection with and just laugh at it all. But
yeah, you need to stop being so edgy now. Can't have all these.
I mean, like even like modern like horrors in like the last century that no one laughs at now. I can guarantee in 1,000 years when people like look back at World War I and World War II and the Vietnam War, they're gonna look back at it and laugh and be like, "Wow, those were a bunch of idiots. What were they thinking?" Because they'll be so removed from the actual wars and everything that they'll be detached from it and they'll be able to see the dark humor in it. Just like how we're able to look back at the First Crusade and laugh at all the peasants that died. Although back at the time, I can guarantee you, everyone was miserable because so many people died. But in retrospect, it's funny because of all the idiot decision-making that was involved. But I think we went on a huge tangent.
Yeah. Okay, we can tie this quickly since we're on, okay, so here's a fun topic. What's your guys' favorite character in Hyrule Conquest? It's an interesting topic.
Do you want me to go first, or
there's one?
You can go first. You can go first now.
You guys can go first.
And I actually, when people ask me this question about anything, it's like I like certain things for certain reasons. Like when people ask me my favorite Zelda game, I'll be like, well, I like this Zelda game a lot for this reason, and I like this Zelda game a lot for a different reason. It's the same thing with characters. I like different characters for different reasons. But overall, my favorite, this is going to sound funny, but I actually think Ravioli right now is my favorite. Rivali. I'm kind of leaning in that direction.
Wait, what?
Exactly. I was waiting for you guys to facepalm. I'm talking about Neffy canon though, not Nintendo canon.
Right.
You told me before. You told that you like Rivali, which I can understand. He sounds like a really fun character.
I like Medley a lot too. Those 2 characters in particular, those kind of just like fell into place naturally, and I'm like, oh, this works out. I really like. I'm trying to think of nasty characters that I like for like bad reasons, which I guess would be villainous characters. I obviously I like Tetra. I think she has a pretty nice character arc through the whole thing, and I kind of sympathize with her and Link a lot. I like Malin a lot, even though no one's really seen her yet. I think I have Malin pretty fleshed out. I can't wait for her to show up in the next thing.
Is that Adam Haplin?
Yeah, I think Adam has joined us, the music guy.
Haplin.
Haplin.
I was told to come here, but I was also told by someone else. I was told by Loopy to make music song monkey.
Music song. Yeah, aren't you working on Saria's song right now?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the one I've opened most recently.
Awesome. Yeah, you do have a few works in progress, but yeah, the sample you sent me for the Saria's song thing was pretty great.
What's your favorite character in Ness stuff, Adam?
Payan.
Good choice.
For those who don't know, that's the joke self-insert character I did in Times Menagerie.
The guy who ran the music room.
Yeah, he just appears as an image. He's not really even much of a character.
Yeah, I'm not gonna speak for Adam, but I'm under the impression he doesn't like Zelda that much, like in its entirety. So I would guess he doesn't really have that many characters he's interested in. But I'm not gonna speak for you.
Yeah, I guess it's more so. I grew up in the PlayStation world, not the Nintendo world. So it's like, yeah, Zelda's actually kind of a newer interest for me, I think. So I've let, maybe it's like, I think especially with like fan stuff, I would need to know a lot about how the characters are originally to like get why Neff did what he did with certain things. And then that would probably inform my favorite character.
I think Exodarian's kind of the same way. I know he's Zelda.
Yeah, Exo's never played a Zelda game until he discovered my stuff. Unless he has and he hasn't told me.
I was so confused when I found your stuff years ago. I was like, is this real stuff or what's going on here? I know close to nothing about actual Zelda canon whatsoever. And so if you would ask me what my favorite character is, probably it's going to be, you know, it's going to be very loosely based because I don't really know too much about the story. I know quite a bit about the story now, but I'm not really attached to a specific character or anything. I just think the entire overarching story is pretty cool itself. If I had to choose one, I'd probably choose two. I'd say Agahnim, even though I really don't know what he does yet. But Agahnim is pretty cool in my opinion, and Yuraxanal as well.
Nice. No one really knows much about Yuraxanal. It's kind of interesting that you brought her up.
Yeah, that is kind of a unique pick.
Yeah, I was not expecting someone to say Yuraxanal. That's pretty cool. I'm pretty sure I know who Deox's favorite is. Daddy Uncle of a Goddess.
Yeah, I mean he's pretty cool, but if I had like I'm really terrible at picking favorites. Because I have a new favorite depending on what I'm doing. Honestly, every time. Overall though, I'd say Hylia. Honestly,
I knew you were gonna
it's
say
either
Hylia.
Nyland or Hylia. Yeah, well, I think.
Well, you know everything about her that most people don't know too, so that's probably informing your decision also.
Yeah, and I really like Nyland as well. I think Nyland is really cool. So.
Oh, but then we're talking about
I
the
have a
Zeldas.
lot.
That's a different topic.
What's a different
When we're
topic?
talking when we're talking about the Zeldas, they're on a different level.
Oh, really? Are they? Are they now?
They're driving the entire story for the most part.
Except
Yeah,
for
I
the
guess.
second one.
I mean-
she's boring.
I like I said, it's so hard for me. Like I like a lot of the characters. I really like Nostrum. I think Nostrum is really cool.
Daddy Nostrum.
Daddy Nostrum.
Sure.
Kazakh. You know, Daddy Daphne.
Daddy Daphne. Daddy, you like all the daddies.
All the daddies are.
Daddy Daphne's, Daddy Nostrum, Daddy Uncle Balin, Daddy Arn.
I like I like daddies.
Oh my. For me,
I like
probably,
Daphne.
I like
go on.
moms.
Huh?
Oh yeah, for me, probably if I like, it's hard to say, but my two favorites are probably Marala and Akazu, honestly.
Nice. Nice to see Akazu's getting some love.
I'm a big Akazu fan.
Not many people like
Akazu's
him, so it's kind of cool that.
I
Someone
like him.
likes
I
him.
like characters that go crazy, and I love necromancers too.
Yeah, he
And I think
he becomes a crazy necromancer, so he fits the bill.
yeah,
If I-
and I'm an edgy boy, so
Well, your
If I had to
Roxanne
give a real
Oliver,
answer, I'd
by the
say
way.
Impa, though.
What about Impa?
If I had to give a real answer, I'd say Impa. I just realized I gave a joke answer and never actually gave a real answer.
I kind of like Impa, but I don't know if you know all of her backstory or like the stuff that kind of hasn't really been told publicly yet. I
Publicly
No.
revealed.
I know that Deox is well aware of what goes on with Impa, and
I know what I've seen, and what I've seen, she's cool, and I actually like her design too. So
I'm further down the road when we hear more about her, though. I think Midna might become my favorite, but for now it's Marala and Akazu.
Mommy
Midna
Midna.
kind of just wins
Pulling up-
waifu status, so
Yeah, following up on the Impa, I actually, I didn't think of Impa when I, gave my answer. I really like Impa just because of how complicated she is. Like, obviously, not everyone knows what her deal is, but she's a very complicated character.
you got a
I have a very
tiny sneak peek of it in the last cinematic when Raru was going on about how she became a sage. Just a tiny little tidbit, like, okay, there's something in her past.
Yeah, I like.
I-
Impa is such a good character.
I have a soft spot for really complicated characters, even though they might be douchebags. Like if they're fleshed out enough, and I feel like their actions are somewhat justifiable, like from their perspective, then I'll most likely gravitate towards those kinds of characters because, yeah, I like complexity.
Yeah, sadly, I mean, this is by design, and this is how Impa, would want the world to perceive her. Sadly, she hasn't really done too much in any of, and she's been in like what 3 or 4 of the storylines now. But she keeps to
I feel
herself.
like she's been in I think Impa, besides Majora, might have been in the most arcs.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, once you find out everything about her, she has done the most of any character. She is responsible for the most things, which is kind of funny. Because it seems
that's
like
also-
she's done so little, but I really don't want to spoil.
Yeah, don't
No.
spoil it. Don't spoil it.
But I think that's why I also really like Hylia, because Hylia is really complicated, and I know you think it's funny enough because you've been kind of like on the fence on where she's going for so long, but then she turned out to be an extremely well written character in my opinion. That's great.
I guess because I think it's probably just because it was such a challenge. Because I mean, I don't want to go off and rant about Skyward Sword for 5 hours again, but there really was not a lot to work with there from the source material. I if I can briefly rant, I do not understand what people see in Hylia in Nintendo canon. And it's not even that she's terrible. There's just next to no information about her. There's like nothing. She's just this random deity that has been inserted out of nowhere, and we know almost nothing. All we know about her is that her and Demise have some kind of beef with each other.
I think part of the appeal is that there's a mystery to her.
Maybe.
I guess, because
So your
she's-
theory is it's the Boba Fett thing? People are
think
like,
it's-
wow,
yeah,
this is
yeah,
mysterious.
yeah.
I want to know more about her.
That's actually a very good way to put it. Yeah.
I think
also,
I think it's
I
because
might
she's
be
an
able to buy
enigma,
that.
and I also think people like the idea of her. And honestly, I have to say that's kind of where I'm at. Is that I like the idea. I just don't necessarily like how it's implemented, but I like the
Right,
idea.
You like her principality.
Oh no.
Yes, exactly.
No, not that word again.
You like the principles behind her.
I've seen people claim to say they like Crystal from Star Fox because she's mysterious.
Oh no.
Oh
Guarantee
no!
But they're lying.
What is this? 2006.
The only mysterious thing about Crystal is all the porn they made of her.
That's not. Isn't that the
Delete.
opposite of mysterious? Though?
Yeah, that's knowing a bit too much about the character.
The processes behind the porn is quite mysterious.
Oh, but
But
Neff, Nev, you and I had a chat about Impa like a few weeks ago, where you spoiled me a little bit.
Yeah, I told you all about Impa.
I kind of baffled me how it's like, no, there's no freaking way that's who Impa is, you know. It's like, they said, yeah, that's the case. It's like,
no, that's
what?
Impa.
Why would Impa do that?
Never trust a Sheikah. That's not that. I mean, I hope that becomes a meme, but it's not intended as a meme. Never trust a Sheikah, no matter what. No matter if they're on your side, do not trust them. They always have some kind of agenda, and that's their job. Like, don't hold it against them personally. That is their job. Never trust a Sheikah. They live on the border of order and chaos, and they are not afraid to dive into chaos, even if it destroys them.
I'm really wondering what's going to happen with Impa then, because it's just really interesting if you look at the way, but she's been a part of the story for a long time now, so
yeah. Other than the ancient age when she wasn't even alive yet, she's been in every story arc, I think. I'm trying to think. I guess she technically wasn't in that little bit with the Tweely. Although, oddly enough, she's kind of responsible for... And I mean, she's not directly responsible, but she's tied to the existence of the Tweely.
Freaking hell.
So yeah, Impa is like connected to almost everything, even things she purposely is not, not directing or trying to be connected to. She seems to have a connection to almost everything. It's really crazy. I kind of like Impa a lot, actually. I don't know if I like her in the same way that I like other characters, though. I actually kind of like Raru a lot too.
We all know your Paya is your favorite now.
Paya,
okay.
Paya, Pizza Paya.
I just ordered a Pizza Paya.
Again, never trust a Sheikah, even if her name is Paya. You just don't. You can't. just be glad if they're on your side for the time being. Be glad they're helping you and they're on your side, but don't trust them. Just don't. No matter what, don't. It's never a good idea to trust a Sheikah.
You're still gonna implement that. You're still gonna implement that line, right? You know, the Paya. Oh no.
I'll probably have a joke of it somewhere, just because that was so funny when you showed me that. It was just, I was face palming so much. I feel really bad, like even like for the Canon character. I feel really bad for Paya. It's a shame.
It's okay.
No, man.
It's fine.
It's such
a
shame, but whatever. It
She'll
is what it is. People will move on when the next Zelda game comes out and they have a bunch of new waifus and husbandos and they stop ruining what little good there is.
Can someone make a Neffy Canon Zelda dating sim?
Yes.
Oh
Wow.
my gosh.
That'd make me so much money.
I can creepily enough, I can envision that being a thing.
As sad as it is, I could envision that, and I could see it actually working too.
Well, technically, it's already been a thing. Wink, wink. You know.
There have been a few conversations on the Discord.
I'm not doing that.
Wink, wink.
Yeah, all the role playing.
Yeah,
all
wink,
this time,
wink.
it's been people role playing dating sims, and you never noticed.
I personally don't have interest in making or playing a Hyrule dating sim, so I don't think I'll ever do it. Despite the fact that it probably would, make me tons of money because of all the perverts in the world, but
It can be one of those creepy underdeveloped things. It's gonna be awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Well, you have like 3D models from 2005.
I remember
And
when
then
I was
you can get those free voice actors.
no, I'm
voice
not.
actors-
I'm
the
not
free voice
gonna
actor-
do it.
the free
Yikes.
voice actors with the Radio Shack mics. Yeah.
Nah, I'm not gonna do it. If someone else wants to be my guest, but I'm not. I'm more interested in the thing I'm doing now.
Man, when I was at the exact right age to enjoy those, I gotta say, dating sims are inherently the most boring game idea ever.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
They all really sucked, and I would be like, I'm gonna see girls, and then I just got bored and never opened them again.
I think we've gone very, very off topic.
Yeah, you kind of have.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
so-
wrap this
talking
up
about
in about
Zelda?
20 minutes. But...
I guess
So
one
right-
thing that would, I guess one thing that could be fun if the chat is up for it, you could have like a Q&A, and then wrap it up.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, because I have to
So-
wrap this up in like about 20 minutes or so. So yeah, Q&A. Yeah, if anyone in the chat has questions,
I've seen Lego Movie too.
I would prefer the questions be about Hyrule Conquest, but if I don't know if the question's cool enough, I guess I'll answer it even if it has nothing to do with Hyrule Conquest.
I've seen Lego Movie 2. Yeah, what of it? Next.
I haven't seen the Lego Movie 2 yet. I'm curious to see it though because I really liked Lego Batman a lot. I thought that was a really funny
Did
movie.
you see the first Lego Movie?
Actually, no, I haven't
There we
seen the
go, so
first
it
Lego
doesn't-
movie. I saw Lego Batman though.
There you go, Hyrule Conquest question, Neff.
Oh, Lear's baby. To quote Lear, it's not what you think.
Yeah, I think that's like the best way to summarize.
Yeah, it's not what you think. Who is that? Was that Hyrule Conquest waifu directed at me?
This guy said, when do we get to see more about Lana/Sheikah?
After the
Sooner
Labrynna
than
arc,
I'd
there's
like.
a lot more Lana when Link and Zelda return to Hyrule. And the whole Wizzrobe, the whole Hylia taking the throne thing like blows up. There's a lot more Lana there. You'll briefly see Lana at the what I call the Red Wedding Ordonian party. You'll briefly see her there, but she's gonna kind of disappear for a while, and then she becomes involved again after the whole Labrynna thing.
And then the Misfit Squad shows up.
I'm fine with that.
The Suicide
She could-
Squad.
She could take a big break from me.
Wow, okay, there's quite a few questions. So, was the Hyrule Conquest waifu question directed at me? Because I don't
I don't
really,
think so.
I don't really participate in the waifu stuff. But I guess if I had to pick, it's kind of a joke that Paya's my waifu, but that's just
It's not even a joke. It's not even a joke.
No,
at this point.
it's kind of a joke. If I really did have to pick, I probably would pick Midna. That's such a good character in canon. Like, in my mind, no character in the entire series has been done better than Midna to this day. That's probably the best character in the whole series. So I'd probably pick Midna.
Well,
Huh?
Midna's a good pick.
Yeah. Just from an outright character standpoint, and even her design is really good. Like, there's nothing bad I can really say about Midna. I can't think of a way to improve that character.
There's a lot of good
Yeah.
questions in here. Goodness gracious.
But oh my goodness, let me go through the questions.
Rapid fire.
Probably can't do all of them.
How can I live with stealing Nintendo's hard work? Well, they ruined my childhood, so
Damn, son.
that's a joke. When will I release Oh, I was reading a question and then the chat jumped. Something about Sulcaris and art. Where did that question go? When will I release an art reference for pre-Fallen Sage Sulcaris? I actually do have a piece of art of her before I included her in, I guess it was Hyrule Total War at the time. I don't think I've ever posted it before. I guess I could release it. It was the concept design for like all the armor and stuff she has now. I don't think I have any extremely old art of her from like the old RPG days floating around. I might. Will Hylia have a bigger role in the next chapter? She does after Labrynna. She does when it is time for Zelda to take the throne and she actually has to cede the throne to her. That's when that's when things really like go to shit for everyone. I don't think it's a spoiler that I don't think it's a spoiler that Zelda kind of regrets her decision and doesn't want to hand over the throne. I don't think that's a spoiler. So, when Zelda comes back and then it's time for her to actually claim the throne, that's when Hylia becomes involved again.
Will you do a Let's Play of the Fallen Sage?
I will never touch the Fallen Sage again.
Can I do a Let's Play of the Fallen Sage?
Other people
Dude,
are welcome
I'll
to
do
do it. Other people are welcome to do it. I highly advise against it because you'll probably get brain cancer halfway through. But I personally will never. I will never interact with that RPG again. I'm kind of like George Lucas, where I can't stand. I can't stand looking at my old stuff. Like even all the cinematics and stuff I just did. I can guarantee you in 5 years I won't be able to look at them, and I'll want to redo it all. That's just the kind of person I am. I'm always trying to make things better than they are, and I can't stand old stuff that I've done that I know I could do better.
Dude, Times Menagerie.
Times Menagerie, man. You got
Times Menagerie.
Let's be honest. Some of the changes were legitimate good changes that George Lucas did to Star Wars.
A few of them were. A few of them were absolutely terrible.
Well, a few of them were pointless, like the CGI dinosaurs everywhere.
We're gonna spend an hour talking about that.
Yeah, I know Iron Wolf.
But like you know,
really
but
Star Wars.
yeah. What I mean to say though is like, yeah, wanting to go back in and fix your stuff isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, I've always been sympathetic to the Lucas wanting to go back and touch up on stuff, even though he's made some strange decisions. I've always been sympathetic towards that idea, because as an artist that is always trying to one up myself and do better, I completely understand wanting to make old things better. So I've not really hated George Lucas for that, despite the fact I don't like a lot of the things he's done. What other questions are there?
Now, rapid fire, go.
Will Link and Vakat team up? Yes, they actually will. That's a pretty good guess. Link, Vakat, Okakusha, Skull Kid, the Deku Princess. They get like a little team in the. They round up a little team there in the forest. What questions? I feel like I missed questions.
Will Hyrule
there was
have a
one
bigger
where-
role in the next chapter?
That one I answered a bit ago.
Yeah.
There was one. So, what was the intention when writing Majora?
I'm not seeing that question. Majora, and I guess this kind of actually fits thematically with the character. Majora's always been kind of abstract. And in my back of my mind, I've always had this idea of what to do with Majora, but it's always been abstract. But I think that actually kind of fits because he's kind of an abstract thing. He literally is like an abstract entity. I guess I could. That's the best way I could put him. He's an abstract entity that represents a bunch of principles that are embodied by material entities in the world. That's like the most scientific way I could put it, and I hate putting it in scientific words because I feel like it's insufficient.
I liked Iron's question. I really liked Iron's question.
I'm missing all these questions.
I didn't ask any.
Jumping back and forth.
I didn't ask a question. I don't know what you're talking about.
So, someone asked when will Majora show up. Majora is always there. That's my answer to that question. Majora is always there. He's never gone. He's always there.
When is the next Gerudo comics coming out?
They won't come out in comic form, but I will redo the Gerudo War cinematics and someday, because I don't think I've said it publicly, but I've definitely complained about it on the Discord. When I was making the Gerudo War storyline in Hyrule Total War with the cinematics and stuff, I axed out a lot of stuff to get it done at a decent pace. And this was before I had a Patreon, so I just kind of wanted to get it done and out of the way, and I really regret it. There's so much stuff I cut out that really should not have been cut out. That's probably my biggest regret with all the cinematics is definitely the Gerudo Wars. I really want to redo it. What other questions? Like the chat thing keeps jumping like up and down, so I'm like missing some of these questions. I just saw Iron Wolf's question with Link and Zelda. I'm not gonna answer that.
You can answer mine instead.
Patrons only, right?
Patrons only.
Patrons only.
What is?
When is Raru ever going to say pish posh? In
Oh.
He is gonna say pish posh at some point. I don't know when. When
Yes.
when it feels right, I'll have him say that. I know that you find that funny, so
Premium.
pish posh Impa. I don't know. I'll find a place for that. It has to feel right. What does King Kazakh prefer, beer or ale? He'd probably actually prefer mead because he has ties to Ordana, and honey's a big thing in Ordana. So he probably would have been raised on mead.
Raised on me, damn.
It's funny because as soon as I said that, I look over and Codeman posted an image of Kazakh with like a Viking kind of face.
It's a hipster face.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's a hipster face. That was like perfect timing. As soon as I said, he probably like mead, Codeman posted that.
No, that's Irish Mickey Petty Peppy.
Will Kazakh take up his true role as a talking sailboat? I don't know if I want to go into detail about the boat. There's sort of spoilers with that.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
I guess
I'll
you'll
pass
have to
on that.
see.
I'm sorry, I'll pass on that one. You'll when I get to the Great Sea, there's. Never mind.
Loopy asked
Loneliness
a
is
pretty
one
good
of
question.
Majora's themes. That's not really a question, so I guess I won't answer that.
Loopy
Are
asked
there
a pretty
the
good one.
ancient ones in your canon? I'm not familiar with something called Ancient Ones from Majora's Mask. Are they from the manga?
Nah, it's the ones that are referenced that made the mask.
Oh, the
They're
ancient,
just
the little
mentioned.
tribe with the hexes and stuff. Oh,
The ancient tribe.
I don't remember them being called Ancient Ones, but they're definitely the actual image of the mask probably originates from somewhere, but like the entity of Majora is beyond visual representation. So Majora is not a created being. Majora just exists. Again, I hate putting it in like materialistic language, but if hypothetically you killed Majora, the universe itself would break. That's the best way I could put it. Majora is like it's part of the universe. Like you can't punch out Cthulhu.
Oh my gosh, Adam, that picture
Majora
on
is-
Discord.
Majora is agnostic.
Majora is agnostic. I guess to kind of answer the Ancient Ones question, it's kind of a yes and no. There probably is a society that created the image of the mask that ended up spreading throughout Hyrule that everyone associates with Majora, but Majora itself was not actually created by anything in the world. Majora is a pattern that precedes matter, so to speak. I think that's the best way I can put it. To quote Jonathan Pajot for a second there, his pattern precedes matter.
It gets really complicated, but I guess it gets the idea across.
Yeah, I had a podcast like 2 or 3 months ago with Deox and Wind Waker all about the nature of symbolism and stuff. You might get some answers from that, or your head will just explode into fire and you'll think we're all a bunch of crazy hipsters. So yeah, I recommend.
Or you can wait
listening
for
to
the
that
sequel.
Did you guys prove Santa?
You can
was
wait
real
for
with that
the
podcast?
sequel podcast.
Santa Claus is real. He's just not real in the same way you and I are.
Nice.
Yeah,
dude.
is talking about that, is there going to be a sequel to this podcast, or are we just leaving it here?
I have to go in about 15 minutes, so I feel like we
We
talk.
can meet up some other time, maybe in a.
I mean, we'll have other podcasts, but I feel like we kind of shot the shit for like
Where's my
almost 3
Hero Time
hours.
podcast?
Yeah, well, yeah. Just we will do a podcast where we watch the Hero of Time and kind of laugh at it. I mean, I feel
Yes.
bad laughing at it, but
And then you guys
No.
can follow along. Like everyone at home can follow along on YouTube.
yeah,
tell you when
we'll
to
do
start
like
the
a
video.
we'll do like a red letter media thing where we're like, okay, start at when this
comedy.
logo shows. I kind of do have a weird soft spot for the Hero of Time fan film, but there's like the autistic like spurgy fan in me is just like, why does Saria have red hair? Like there's so many things about it that just make me facepalm. That I think it'd be funny if we did like a commentary over it.
The red hair is the least of that movie's problems.
I know. I know.
I'm gonna.
My icon is Link's face for a reason. That's his acting capability all in one image.
I'm gonna plug this.
But let me see if there's any other questions that I can answer before I have to go. I see someone pointing out the quote from Hylia. Yeah, that idea I actually think is that idea of the more power you gain, the more enslaved you actually become to the power. Obviously, this idea is a really ancient idea. It actually is. It's a theme in like the Old Testament, but Tolkien, I think, did a really good job kind of expressing this idea that as you come to rely on some kind of power to manifest your will, if you lose that power, it destroys you, which is kind of the idea behind the One Ring or even the Nazgul. Like, actually, let's apply this to modern society, like electricity. If you got rid of electricity right now, it just all stopped working, people would die because of it, because we have become slaves to it in a way. Despite the fact that electricity gives us so much power, we're actually slaves to it. We can't live without it, or a lot of us would literally die. Like, food production would die, like, the economy would collapse, and people would die because of it. That's the idea that Hylia is talking about there in that speech, is the more you become enslaved to things that give you power that is not actually from within yourself, the more vulnerable you actually become. It's a really strange. There's actually there's a term that some economist gave to this idea. It's the idea that the more technology you create, the more problems you actually create, and it's like this endless cycle of creating technology to solve technology's problems. I can't remember what that was called though, but
Is that the utility treadmill?
I think I can't remember what it was called, but and this has been a problem humans have had since like we were, cavemen. Like,
That's what that show Black Mirror is about.
Oh,
basically.
really?
Or it's like so technology isn't solving problems; it's just replacing them with new ones.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. I think that's kind of an oversimplification, but that's definitely a way to understand it. And it's not even just technology. It's if you like submit to an ideology that gives you power. It's just anytime you rely on something that is not yourself that gives you power, you run the risk of becoming a slave to it. And the only way to avoid that problem is to be able to give up that thing that gives you power. Because if you lose it, you lose a part of yourself with it. If you can willingly give it up and not die, then that's a thing that humans are absolutely terrible at. We get power from things and we like to keep it, and it kind of eats at us. Humans are absolutely terrible at being able to just give up things that give them power. It kind of sucks. It's a weird flaw we have.
Yeah.
But that's what Hylia was going on about. Tolkien, I think, is the one writer I can think of who, at least modern writer. Obviously, there's tons of theologians from the 3rd and 4th century that talk a lot about this. But like as far as modern writers goes, Tolkien, I think, understood it the best. And the One Ring, that is absolutely perfect. Like, the One Ring is a symbol. It's this thing that Sauron came to rely on so much that when the ring actually is destroyed, Sauron can't even exist anymore because he's actually a slave to the ring, which is kind of interesting. He has all of this power, but if the ring isn't there, he's nothing. And it's like a hyper condensed symbol of that idea of coming to rely on things that are external to yourself to give you power. And I'm not even trying to say technology and stuff is bad. It's just you have to be able to give it up if the situation calls for it. Basically, don't rely on it. Use it as a tool when you can, but don't. And unfortunately, I don't see any way we could give up our technology now. We're so enslaved to it. We'll die if we give it up. Like factory farming is a great example. If we just stopped factory farming, so many people would starve to death. Like it's not like we've
by
got
the
we've
way-
got ourselves trapped basically in our technology. It's really sad. But anyway,
before you end the stream, I'm pretty sure if you leave the stream like this, it will only save the past 2 hours or something. It will actually-
it takes like a few days for it to upload the whole thing. It's really annoying. I don't know why YouTube does that. Sometimes it's only a few hours and then it'll upload the whole thing. But yeah, when a live stream is done, for between like a few hours and a few days, only the last 2 hours of the live stream show up on YouTube. It's really weird. Eventually the whole thing shows up. It's just that's why I always try to catch like a bunch of the live streams I listen to live, because if I don't, I have to wait like a few days to listen to the whole thing. Although sometimes, it's only a few hours. It's never consistent. Let me see if there's one more question I can answer before we wrap this up. Actually, do you guys have any questions?
Well,
Good
probably
question.
like for the next we probably still have to talk something about, or just like privately about mechanics a bit in the future.
Yeah, I think on
I'm
Monday
still
is
gonna be
when
on
I'm gonna
Monday.
get back into everything. Like, I kind of took the last few days off because I was dead after I finished that cinematic. I'm probably also gonna I'm gonna probably just relax tomorrow. Monday, I'm probably gonna get back into the swing of things. I'll probably be bothering Iron Wolf on Monday about Ordonia, and I'll probably start on the Moblins later that day too. At least getting their skeletons set up and their animations and stuff in the engine.
Sounds good to me.
We still need some kind of a roadmap,
Yeah.
a rough roadmap for the next release.
Oh, I actually
See what we're gonna do.
I did post kind of like a general roadmap in the Discord a few days ago. I don't know if you saw it. I'll post it again if you didn't.
I didn't see it, but
Yeah, I kind of have
I
an
mean, we'll
outline
get
of
around
the
to
things
it.
I'm gonna do, but the gist of it is I'm gonna do the Moblins and the Darknuts. I want to get the Zuna minor faction in. They'll probably be on one of the desert maps. I want all the mercenaries are gonna get put in finally because the Darknuts, one of their mechanics is based entirely on mercenaries, so I need to get them all into the game, which means Ashe will work properly in the next version too. I want to get a few more maps. I want to get a lot more wildlife into the game. And then, obviously, any mechanics that you feel like you could get done, like knockback. I know you said you probably won't have knockback done, but things like
we'll see.
knockback
I
or...
just have to, look at what I will prioritize. But so far, like the AI is just eating up most of my time, so I'll have to.
Yeah,
put it
I
on the
mean,
side
by all
maybe.
means, continue with the AI, because if the AI is good, then, all the single-player people, including me, will be happy. Because I'm not really a multiplayer guy, although I've really enjoyed the multiplayer matches I've played, and I look forward to the next tournament.
Most people, I believe, are going playing single player, and the current AI works to some extent, but it's very bare bones, and some of the factions, their AI just breaks completely sometimes, to the point where you might as well just restart the match entirely. The AI
Right.
just doesn't know what to do anymore. So,
Hopefully the next. I was thinking about the next tournament not too long ago. Actually, I was gonna do it in February, but then I changed my mind, and honestly, I might just wait for.
The Moblins and
Moblins.
Darknuts.
Yeah, I might.
I
just
honestly
wait.
would recommend that, especially because, like you said, Ordana's kind of
not- They're a little anti-Christ right now.
yeah, everyone's probably going to gravitate towards playing Ordana competitively in the current version. So, I mean, I guess we could release a patch that just fixes Ordana, but I honestly, I kind of want to. I think we should probably wait for the Darknuts because I really think the Darknuts are going to bring in a few more players just because of how popular they are.
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good. So I'm gonna hold
Maybe
off
I'm
until-
wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I have this gut feeling that after I put up the trailer with the Moblins and the Darknuts, people are gonna be like, "Oh, Darknuts are cool. I should check this out." And maybe we'll get more people that
Yeah,
will
I have a
participate
feeling.
in multiplayer.
you're gonna put up a trailer? Oh, well, that's like just before the release.
Yeah, just like I did for Ardana and Laniru. Just a bunch of
yeah.
gameplay and. Although for the Moblin trailer, I think I'm actually gonna have Ogalon talking over it, going like, "Have you heard the tales of the Moblins?" going on about how awesome the moblins are.
Oh yeah.
And then and then like halfway through the trailer, she's just like, "Oh yeah, the Darknuts, they're cool too," and just leaves it at that. Because that's what the moblins would be going on about how awesome they are, and then they'd be like, "Oh yeah, the Darknuts, they're awesome too," and then just say nothing else.
By the way, speaking about videos and trailers,
Oh
I
no.
I remember you mentioning you would make a Goron video about the plots at some point, but you never did.
Oh yeah, I was gonna do that. What else was I gonna do? Yeah, I was gonna show off the Goron base building and stuff before I released it, and I didn't. I completely forgot.
But people have already played it now, so I'm not sure if there's still a point.
Yeah, I can't. Maybe as like I feel like, yeah, Iron Wolf said it might be a better idea if he just like shows how to do it in multiplayer.
You can go try
I
hard.
completely
Iron
forgot
Wolf
to
is
do
try
that.
hard. Can you do that, Iron Wolf? Can you go try hard?
Can I breathe?
Can you be yourself and go try hard?
I just realized I haven't eaten lunch yet today. Holy crap.
I'm just now eating lunch, my dude.
I forgot to eat lunch today because I like woke up and I got on like right away because I tried to go to sleep early last night, but like as I said, my sleep schedule has been absolutely terrible for like the last 2 weeks because I was trying to get that animation done. So I still haven't shifted back to like a normal schedule. I'm still like falling asleep at like 5 in the morning and waking up at noon.
But yeah, I can do that. I got a couple things on my agenda I gotta work with.
Yeah, I'll probably bother you on Monday, because that's when I'm gonna get back into the swing of things. I'm probably taking tomorrow off.
Sounds good, man. Just let me know.
All right, I'll probably do some Sigma stuff tonight and tomorrow. The stuff no one cares about. And then I won't work on it for another 3 years.
Hey, I want Sigma.
I want a Sigma a lot too, but I can't justify devoting like several weeks to working on it when the Zelda stuff's doing okay right now. I don't know. We'll see. May if I can find a way to do both at the same time, I will. But
You could just put Sigma into like a mini prototyping phase for now.
I was considering that. That's what I was gonna do with the Star Fox game if I decided to make it an RTS. I was gonna kind of, because it uses the 0AD engine also.
It's not a bad idea.
There's some
You said
things.
you were gonna do Sigma and 0AD, right?
Yeah, Sigma's also going to be in 0AD. There's some things that I can't really do in 0AD with it yet, like lasers, which I was really hoping to get in for, because right now the Armagoma kind of just like lob a fiery like fireball at their enemies, but I want like a constant like stream of fire shooting out of their eyes. So there's a few things like that would have to just be like rough placeholders for Sigma. Although, like you said, it's like a rough prototype. I guess I don't need to have laser beams in it yet.
So, so we calling it here?
Yeah, I unless you guys have anything else to say, I think it's a good point to wrap it up. I can't think of anything else interesting.
I was just gonna say to everyone in the chat, join the Discord. I say it every time, but you know, if you're interested in talking more about Hyrule Conquest, then you know the easiest place to reach everyone, and Nef is on the Discord, so join the Discord.
Yeah,
if you haven't
and usually every Friday I kind of have a voice chat on the Discord, although I haven't lately because I've been so caught up in the animations. But I'll probably start doing that again. I'll probably try to do podcasts like every month or so again too.
Sounds good.
Cause
I'm gonna link my YouTube channel in chat, but besides that, I have nothing else.
Wow.
Hey,
Promoting here.
Yeah, no, actually, no, do check out Iron Wolf's channel if you're interested in playing Hyrule Conquest like in multiplayer, because he has, I mean, as updates and stuff come out, he'll probably do more videos, but he has like guides on how to play the factions in multiplayer.
This Iron Wolf guy is allegedly the best player. Just saying.
Oh my god.
Obviously, if you like the music in the game, check out Adam's channel. I don't think Deox has a YouTube channel, does he?
Quick
No,
note,
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't think I did every. I didn't do every piece of music in Hyrule Conquest.
yeah, he hasn't done every single one. He's done all the good ones.
Whoops, I just realized I accidentally linked the wrong thing.
But if anyone wants to reach me, for whatever reason, then just do it on the Discord. I'll reply relatively quickly. So, and I'm always on Discord, so that's the best place to like get in touch with me.
I mean, Deox is legally a historian, so I guess if you want to learn about history, he can tell you about all the Vikings. And the fact that they were a society of nothing but raiders. They had no farmers. They had no economy. All the Vikings did was just raid.
If people have ideas for mechanics, they can pester Neff, and the Neff you can pester me with mechanics.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to ideas. Just don't like expect me to like take every single idea that people give me. I do discern between ideas I like and ideas I don't think will work.
You know what mechanic I want? I want you to put my OC in the game. That's
It'll be in the music room again. We could have like a music room, like a little menu option where you can listen to the music.
No, it's like an actual map you have to walk around to actually navigate that.
I mean, I guess I could do that.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
No. I'm not opposed to like a menu option where you could listen to all the music, like where it has a list of all the music and you can click on it and listen to it. Because I don't know, music's really important to me.
Some more self-promotion. I have a channel as well, Exodarian. You can check out some AI sneak peeks there if you're interested. They're just 1-minute videos.
Exodarian has done a lot of awesome like programming stuff for the game. Like without him, there probably wouldn't even be like AI in Hyrule Conquest right now. The AI would just like glitch out and try to do 0 AD stuff. Because I know it's not. I mean, I don't think it's a surprise. I'm not actually a programmer. I took a few classes on how to program, and I absolutely hated it, and I wanted to kill myself. It was like the most unfun thing in my life. I've always been more of, on the artsy side of things.
In the Crystal Archive podcast about where he mentioned Cursed, he mentioned how he said he thought, he seems like he's a really good programmer.
No, I'm not like completely incompetent. Like if I see something, I can generally figure it out. I'm just not good at all. Like I actually have programmed a game from scratch just using a few libraries. It's just it's terrible. It's that the reverb thing I did a few years ago with the moths and the mantises.
I didn't know that was an actual functioning game or anything.
It's terrible and it breaks, but it technically functions. And I was absolutely miserable doing that. I had to do that for an assignment.
We need to do Antibody 2.
I should try and redo Antibody someday. I have the new. I keep getting like the newest versions of Game Maker, and I haven't even touched them yet. I've had them like installed for years, and I haven't even opened them up.
Oh yeah. Again, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Like, we do have a really extensive wiki. So if there's anything, a burning question you have, then, in most cases, you'll find your answer on the wiki. So I suggest looking it up.
Yeah, there's quite a few spoilers on the wiki, although there's a few things I think I asked them to keep off. I'm trying to think of things that aren't on the wiki. I don't think Impa's been spoiled on the wiki. Yeah, the wiki's pretty good. Kudos to Looper and all the people that keep the wiki relatively clean. Actually, they do a pretty good job just keeping it clean. It's pretty good. I would love to work on the wiki myself, but I don't have the time. I love to add like all the images and the formatting and everything. I can't do it. I don't have enough time.
All right, well, I'm probably gonna head out if we're
done.
Yeah,
yeah, I have to leave in like 10 minutes, so I'm gonna cut this off. Actually, a little longer than that, but yeah, I'm gonna end it here. So, yeah, that was fun.
All right,
hopefully, all the people in the chat enjoyed the celebration stream. The Fallen Sage is finally done. I'm kind of glad. It's old. It's what 15 years old now.
Yeah, dude. I was saying the other day, like, I've known Solcaris since I was in elementary school,
That's so weird to me.
and now I'm about to finish college, and she finally did.
That's so weird for me to think, because, like, I was pretty young when I started all of this stuff, and it's so weird to think that, like, when I started this stuff, like, there's people who are, like, kids, and that are now, like, grown up and, like, grew up with my stuff. It's really weird to me. It's really weird to think that there are people that actually grew up with my work. I can't wrap my head around that yet to this day.
It's okay. I appreciate your childhood. I'm gonna head out.
All right, I'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thanks, everyone.
I guess look
Yeah,
forward to the moblins sometime in the next few weeks, guys.